Hey guys, tonight we slip behind the velvet drapes of a world the history books tend to button up until now. The oil lamps flicker low, casting warm amber halos across a marble floor. The air smells faintly of myrrh, honeyed wine, and something vaguely animal. You're standing at the threshold of a Roman domus, the kind of villa reserved for patricians and praetors. The powerful, the perverse, the exquisitely bored. A serving boy, barely a teenager, guides you by the elbow. You notice he's shaved, oiled, and wearing nothing but a gold chain around his neck. He doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. Every muscle in his body says this night is choreographed. And you're on the guest list. Sort of. The silk curtain brushes your shoulders as you step inside. You hear the distant clink of goblets' laughter that rises like bubbles and a harpsichord playing something both ancient and unsettling. Welcome to an elite Roman evening, somewhere between indulgence and institution, where the line between feast and farce, ritual and riot is thinner than your host's patience. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. It's oddly soothing to know we're all scattered across the world tuning in together. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've barely taken 10 steps, and already your sandals stick slightly to the mosaic floor. A floral pattern glints underfoot, roses, vines, tiny cupids chasing nymphs in stone. But look closer, and you'll notice the cracks. This place has seen more than wine stains and heavy steps. This is no ordinary dinner party. This is a convivium, a structured gathering, yes, but one designed for indulgence of every sense. By the end of the night, names will be forgotten, reputations made, reputations ruined. Orgies in Rome were as much political theater as they were pleasure. The air is warm and dry. You feel the brush of linen against your arm, someone's toga sweeping past. Men of influence fill this atrium, speaking softly over bowls of olives and roasted dormice, their laughter slightly performative. You catch the scent of burning cedar. It's not to keep guests warm, it's to mask what's to come. One historical fact to keep in your mind: Roman orgies were not as frequent as pop culture claims, but they were very real and well documented, especially under certain emperors. Caligula, Nero, and Commodus didn't just tolerate decadence, they curated it. Still, historians argue whether these orgiastic events were genuinely as wild as satirists like Juvenal described, or if we've all been duped by dramatic exaggerations and salty poetry. What's certain, events like this existed, and you're in one. The entrance hall was a test. You passed. Not because you said anything clever, but because you didn't. The quiet ones stay longer. A servant girl, barefoot, silver anklets, jingling, hands you a goblet. You don't ask what's in it. No one does. That's part of the game. You drink. It's sweet at first, then sharp, pomegranate wine with something bitter laced beneath. A numbing agent, a love potion, ancient Gatorade. No clue, but you feel it. Your host finally appears. He's tall, round-bellied, with a voice like crushed gravel. He kisses you on both cheeks, calls you amicus, and then loudly insists no toga is required tonight. His eyes linger a second too long on your chest. The room laughs. He claps, and music resumes. Lutes, drums, that eerie harp again. Guests begin peeling off in twos and threes, some vanishing behind silken veils that sway like breath. You notice one of the senators tracing a design into his wine with a single finger. It's the letter V, Venus perhaps, or victory, or a quiet sign to someone watching, a fringe detail to note wealthy Romans often used their slaves as living decorations during these events. Some were painted gold, others blindfolded and ordered to stand in tableau. One man in the corner stands perfectly still with a plate of figs balanced on his head. You're not sure he's breathing. Your host leans in and tells you something about the emperor's newest affair. You laugh because he laughs, though you barely catch the words. Everyone's murmuring like conspirators, their secrets swirling in the haze of incense and wine. You pass under an arch, where frescoes depict satyrs chasing maenads, limbs tangled, eyes wide. Not a single figure on the wall looks sober. This was art, sure, but also a message: abandon rules here. They don't apply. That mosaic at the entrance, it's not a warning. It's a permission slip. A small dog, probably some pampered breed, fed on figs and goat milk, trots by with a gold ribbon tied around its belly. Someone chuckles. It's more dressed than I am. They're right. Tunics have begun slipping. Togas loosen. You realize that modesty is a currency that holds no value past the second drink. Still, you're not lost. Not yet. Another guest approaches, his breath honeyed, his eyes quick. He asks if you've met Livia, then immediately says, "Doesn't matter," and gestures toward a woman dancing with a snake draped over her shoulders. That's her. Or maybe not. We don't do names after sunset. You're starting to understand Roman orgies weren't chaotic free-for-alls. They were orchestrated, each moment designed to disarm, to seduce, to expose. Not just flesh, but status, intentions, weaknesses. Think of it like a chess game, but with fewer clothes and more fig paste. You follow the crowd through another corridor. The walls are lined with bronze mirrors. You see yourself from a dozen angles, blushed, dazed, reflecting back someone who clearly did not expect to end their night here. The mirrors weren't for vanity. They were surveillance. You never know who's watching in this place. You hear a laugh from above. You glance up. Yes, there's a second-floor gallery with lattice windows. Someone's watching from behind one of them. Just a silhouette. Possibly another guest. Possibly someone more official. Roman elites had a habit of observing from above. Sometimes for pleasure, sometimes for leverage. By the time you're handed a second goblet, you've forgotten your host's name, which is fine, he never gave it. That's part of the theater. Everyone is someone here, just for tonight. A final detail before we slip deeper: the lamps. Dozens of them. Oil-fed, bronze-bodied, flickering gently. Their designs are clever, some shaped like satyrs, others like hands. One even looks like a squid, its tentacles casting strange shadows on the floor. Light matters here. It defines what's hidden and what's not. It decides who sees what and when. And tonight, you're not in charge of any of it. You move deeper into the house, into the belly of the beast, really, where marble fades into dark wood and laughter thickens like syrup. You're not in the atrium anymore. This is the triclinium, the main dining room, and it feels like entering a stage mid-performance. There's a certain buzz to it. Eyes turn when you cross the threshold, not because you're important, but because you're new. And here, fresh is always interesting. You notice the guests more clearly now. They're reclining on wide couches, each spaced like spokes on a wheel, around a low table groaning under the weight of food. Roasted birds with gilded beaks, jellied eels coiled like punctuation marks, dates stuffed with nuts and ash-fried cheese. A dish of sea urchins leaks a briny tang across the floor. You catch the faintest crunch beneath your sandals. Someone dropped a quail bone. And who are these people? Let's break it down. You've got senators instantly recognizable by their precise posture and dangerously bland expressions. Retired generals with scar-laced forearms and over-loud laughter. The poets smelling faintly of ink and sandalwood, already halfway into their own metaphors. freedmen who bought their way into this room, less refined, more hungry. And then the floaters, beautiful, barely dressed figures who seem to hover between guest and servant, always with a carafe in one hand and a secret in the other. You settle near the edge of one couch, not yet ready to recline fully. A man beside you, wiry with a painted eyebrow, whispers, "Relax, friend. You're here. That's enough." Then he hands you a fig carved with the shape of something not safe for YouTube. What's fascinating here isn't just who's present, but how they behave. This isn't democracy. It's theater with assigned roles. Everyone's watching everyone, but pretending they're not. One man eats only grapes. Another refuses food entirely, sipping just water. A woman lets her slave feed her one cherry at a time, as if she's forgotten how fingers work. Mainstream history will tell you the Romans valued decorum, gravitas, dignitas, all that stoic masculinity. And yes, in the Senate or on the battlefield maybe. But in here, different rules. In here, status is fluid. You're judged not by how you restrain desire, but by how artfully you display it. And let's not forget, this isn't just pleasure. This is politics with its robe off. You look across the room and see a praetor refilling a poet's cup. That's not casual. That's maneuvering. It's a kind of whispered deal that says, "Write me favorably, and I'll keep your cup full." Power flows faster than wine here. One quirky but true tidbit: Romans often chose guests based on their voice tone. High-pitched laughter was frowned upon, deep voices preferred. It's why you hear so many murmurs, low, almost conspiratorial. No one wants to sound like a provincial goat herder. Now something odd catches your eye. Near the central table, two men are laughing over a roasted peacock, except the peacock's feathers are still attached. They've been painted gold, each one. It's absurd. It's also incredibly expensive. But this is the point: displays like this say I can waste wealth more elegantly than you can spend it. The server girls flit through the crowd, with practiced grace, holding trays at eye level, bending strategically. They're not here by accident. Each is trained to do more than pour wine. Some were hired for their musical skills. Others for memory, able to recite a senator's favorite poem or his preferred vintage from 2 years ago. There's one girl who plays the pan flute between courses. You're not sure when she stopped or started. It all blurs. As you finally recline because standing too long makes you look uncertain, a senator you vaguely recognize slides closer. He nods toward a young man across the room. "That one's from Gaul," he says. "Bought his citizenship with saffron trade. Spends more on sandals than a consul does on mistresses." You chuckle politely. The senator leans in further. Watch him. He brought gifts. That means he wants something. Gifts that you hadn't noticed. But sure enough, beside the Gaul's couch sits a polished wooden box. In it, a crystal vial, a silk-wrapped scroll, and what looks like a caged songbird. Historian debate time, some scholars argue that gift-giving during these events was a breach of etiquette, too transactional. Others insist it was common practice, especially for those angling for favors. What's not debated? Everything at these parties was strategic. Even compliments could be currency. And that's when you hear it, a sudden shift in tone. Laughter hushes slightly. Heads turn. Someone new has entered. You don't see them at first, but the energy shifts. It's like a temperature drop, subtle but unmistakable. Guests shift in their seats. The servers tighten their smiles. Then, through a curtain of golden beads, she appears. Tall, cloaked in silk, so sheer it might as well be a rumor, and barefoot because of course she is. Her hair's woven with pearls, and her gaze is calm in the way oceans are calm right before a ship goes missing. This is not just another guest. No one says her name. You hear whispers the emperor's favorite high priestess of Venus, daughter of a senator, widow of a gladiator. All possibly true. All may be invented tonight. She reclines at the innermost couch directly beside your host. That means power. That means danger. Your host snaps his fingers and music resumes. Sharper this time. Faster. A servant rushes to pour wine but stumbles nervous. It spills. A stain blooms across the woman's silk, and yet she smiles. How lucky, she purrs. Now it matches my heart. Everyone laughs, a little too loudly. The servant bows so low his forehead taps the floor. One more curious detail: Romans considered laughter a tool used to elevate, to embarrass, or to disguise discomfort. In a room like this, it's weaponized. And tonight, you'll need it like armor. By now, your third goblet has disappeared without notice. The fig paste is hitting. The air feels warmer. Time is slippery. The poet beside you says something about Saturn devouring his sons, but you can't tell if he's reciting or confessing. A moment later, he's kissing the senator's ring. Possibly literal, possibly euphemistic. You don't ask. The peacock is gone. The girl with the flute is back. The dog now has a second ribbon. The party somehow is still just beginning. You're finally reclining. Not quite confidently, but enough to blend in. The couch cushions are overstuffed horsehair wrapped in dyed linen imperial purple, the kind reserved for emperors and their overeager imitators. You shift your weight and feel something small and hard beneath the fabric. A grape stem maybe, or a clasp, or something someone left behind on purpose. A servant drapes a folded cloth over your lap, ornamental, yes, but also symbolic. You're no longer a bystander. You're now part of the setting, part of the tableau, the stage. And speaking of cloth, let's talk dress codes, or rather, undress codes. Roman orgies weren't a sea of nudity from the start. No, that came later. At first, it was all about subtle invitation and silent hierarchy. Clothing, or the lack of it, was the unspoken language of the night. You glance around the room, starting to notice the patterns. The senators. They keep the tunic, lose the belt. That loose drape says, "I don't need to try." Wealthy merchants favor sheer linens deliberately knotted to accidentally reveal more than they conceal. The poets wear dyed silks, tacky almost but forgivable in artists. And then there are the women. Some wear stolas with one strap lowered, an old trick. Some wear nothing but jewelry. And a very few, are entirely veiled in transparent gauze. The veil, ironically, is the most suggestive garment here. It promises mystery while offering none. One woman wrapped in blue gauze catches your eye and smiles like she already knows how your night ends. Historical fact here: Roman laws technically restricted extravagant clothing. Sumptuary laws were supposed to curb luxurious dress, especially for women. But within private villas, those laws disappeared like virtue after the third course. Historians still debate whether these orgiastic gatherings were open to all classes of women or strictly reserved for elite courtesans, matrons, and female slaves. Sources contradict each other, often colored by the moral anxieties of whoever was writing. What's certain, every woman in this room is wearing intention, even if she's not wearing anything else. Back to you. A bald man reclines nearby wearing a golden torque around his neck, and literally nothing else. He's oiled from scalp to heel, shining like a statue. Every so often, someone leans over to whisper in his ear. He never responds, just smiles faintly. His job isn't to speak. He's here as furniture or status, or a warning. You glance down at your own tunic. It suddenly feels heavy, outdated, as if the fabric itself is judging you. You tug at the collar, and the poet beside you laughs. First time he says, then he adds, "Don't worry." It comes off easier after dessert. The courtesan across the room now leans over her couch to allow a young man to dab her back with rosewater. His hand lingers a bit too long. She lets it, then sends him away with a flick of a painted nail. A quirky fact: Roman perfumes weren't sprayed, they were massaged. Scent was considered a tool of seduction and dominance. The most expensive oils came from Arabia and India. Guests sometimes arrived already perfumed, but hosts often offered their own oils, a subtle way to mark others with their scent, like aristocratic cats. Another server approaches you. This one is younger, with deep-set eyes and a tray of small cakes dusted in what looks like gold leaf. You take one. He doesn't leave. He waits, watching. You eat it. The center is soft and slightly bitter, probably soaked in spiced date liquor. You're not entirely sure what just happened, but he seems satisfied. He walks away. There's a shift now. The music slows. The laughter dims. Your host stands. His robe slips down one shoulder, not by accident. He raises a goblet. Tonight, he says, we honor not just Bacchus, but our own mortal appetites. Let modesty take its leave. Let pretense fall like the old republic. Laughter, applause. You clap too. It's expected. Then he lifts a finger, and the servants begin moving again. Not with food, with cloth. Curtains are drawn back, revealing smaller chambers branching off the main hall. Each room is themed. One lit in red, filled with cushions and lyres. Another blue, tiled like a bathhouse where two women already lounge in shallow water, feeding each other dates. You notice it immediately. Clothing begins to vanish. A senator rises, stretches, and steps away, robes pooling behind him. A matron pulls the pins from her hair, letting it fall down her back as she follows. This is the moment. The shift from theater to participation. The poet beside you stands and shrugs off his tunic. Underneath gold paint lines his collarbones. I'm off to recite Ovid, he winks. Or invent something better. You remain seated. A few others do too, newer guests or older ones with different appetites. A man in the far corner is scribbling on a wax tablet, seemingly oblivious to the gathering disrobing around him. To your left, a woman leans in and whispers, "Don't worry. Watching is perfectly acceptable. For a while." She vanishes into the red room. At this point, you start to recognize roles beyond class or gender. There are voyeurs who linger on cushions and sip wine with half-lidded eyes. Actors who crave attention and invent roles for themselves in each new room. Collectors who gather kisses like coin. And chameleons who adapt to whoever's watching. One older man wears nothing but a wreath of ivy, his skin inked with mythological symbols. A courtesan paints a new one on his chest with a brush dipped in wine. It's a lion. She licks it once and walks away. You glance toward the gallery above. Still figures watch from behind the lattice. Silent. Judges or guests, maybe both. And then you see her again. The woman who entered before. The one with pearls in her hair. She hasn't moved. She watches everything. A man approaches her and kneels. She says nothing. He kisses her foot and walks away. Her gaze lands on you again. This time she smiles, just slightly. You shift on the couch a little dizzy. The gold cake, maybe. Or the wine. Or the heat. The music changes once more, this time a deeper rhythm. Drums. Slow, steady, almost like a heartbeat. Servants begin removing the last of the curtains. Some rooms reveal couches, others pools. In one room, a slave boy plays a lyre blindfolded, never missing a note. You stand. Not because you've decided anything, but because everyone else has moved. A servant places a bowl near your feet. Inside are tokens, ivory chips engraved with tiny symbols. A feather, a snake, a fig, a mask. You pick one at random. The mask. The servant bows. Red room, he whispers. You hesitate. Or you can trade, he adds. No shame in waiting. You look again at the bowl. Someone's hand reaches in and pulls out the feather. You pocket the token. You still haven't taken off your tunic. But the door to the red chamber is now open, and the scent drifting from it is ambrosial, like warm honey cedarwood and something else. Something you can't name. Yet, the red chamber breathes like a living thing. As you step across its threshold, the air changes, warmer, softer, thick with the scent of crushed rose petals and frankincense, and something else, something sharp underneath like copper coins left in the sun. The glow here is low, flickering from recessed oil lamps hidden behind tinted alabaster panels. Every shadow has depth. Every corner promises mischief. You pause. The floor is covered in embroidered rugs, thick enough to silence footsteps. A clever touch. No one knows who's approaching unless they want to be heard. Inside the room unfurls in concentric layers. Cushions, divans, and velvet-draped alcoves circle a low central platform elevated just slightly. On it, a woman dances. Slowly, precisely. Her hair hangs down in damp coils, her eyes half closed, her hips moving in time with a rhythm you can't hear but can definitely feel. The drum beat from earlier has followed you in, but here it's slower, intimate. The kind of rhythm that gets under your skin and stays there. You clutch your token, the tiny ivory mask, tight in your palm. No one has asked for it. Yet. Then a voice beside you, first mask of the night. Lucky, you turn. A man in a silver robe, bare-chested beneath smiles without showing teeth. Means you get a front-row view, he says. Or a role in the play if she chooses you. Play he doesn't explain. Just gestures to the platform where the dancer has now stopped moving. She stands still, arms raised, and a servant approaches her with a bowl of glittering powder. She dips her fingers into it and begins painting her own skin in sweeping arcs, silver on brown. Each line placed carefully, not for coverage, but for symbol. The room watches like worshippers in a temple. You realize this isn't dance. This is ritual, and not the kind written in marble. This is oral tradition, candle-lit, closed-door ritual. Roman parties were infamous for blurring pleasure and piety. What better way to honor Venus or Bacchus than by living as they supposedly did? One historical nugget. The cult of Bacchus, banned and reformed multiple times in the Republic era, was known for its ecstatic rites, orgiastic ceremonies held in secret. Though publicly condemned, private households continued versions of them for centuries, often repackaged as entertainments. You're in one right now. A servant finally approaches you. He wears a fox mask and carries a tray of carved bone chips, each etched with strange pictograms, a flame, a crescent, a theater mask like yours. You offer your token. He bows. You may approach. The dancer sees you. She doesn't speak. She just lowers one arm and points to the base of the platform. The gesture is clear. Sit. Observe. Possibly participate. As you move closer, the audience behind you fades into a low hum. You can feel their eyes, though. Watching. Measuring. Your every hesitation is a note in tonight's symphony. Now seated near the platform, you notice small objects nestled into its edges, peacock feathers, fig slices, polished stones. Offerings or props, a second performer joins her now. A man with arms like sculpture and a shaved head covered in painted vine tattoos. They circle each other, not dancing, circling. Tension thickens. Then they embrace, and the room exhales. This isn't erotic in the modern sense, it's ritualistic. and everyone here understands it better than you do. Behind you, soft laughter rises. Someone is whispering predictions. She'll choose the masked one. He always lets her lead. Last time she bit someone. You try not to flinch, and then she's in front of you. The dancer kneels, bare knees, pressing into the velvet. She studies your face like she's reading a map. One fingertip traces your jaw. Then, with slow precision, she leans forward and paints a single streak of silver across your collarbone. Cold, soft, unmistakable. The crowd murmurs. She rises, turns her back, and resumes the ritual, this time with you marked as a participant. Symbolically, subtly, but undeniably. You've just been woven into the narrative. Scholars still argue whether these performances common in elite Roman gatherings were purely theatrical or deliberately sensual. Some say they mimicked religious ceremonies. Others insist they were improvisational dramas. What's clear, these were not passive entertainments. They were invitations. From the corner of the room, the poet, your reclining companion from earlier, calls out, "He bears the mask of comedy. May he earn his laughter well." The dancer smiles. A servant hands you a goblet filled with something dark, thick, almost like syrup. You sip. It tastes of mulberry and vinegar spiked with some herbal bitterness you can't place. Your lips tingle, and suddenly the room tilts. Not physically, but something in your brain slips sideways. Time slows. The dancer's gestures leave afterimages. The air itself seems denser. Congratulations, you've just been enhanced. A fringe tidbit here: ancient Romans had access to psychoactive substances, often mixed into wine or pastes. While some gatherings avoided them, others embraced the mind-altering effects, especially during ritualized performances. You might have just had a dose of mandrake, or opium, or even henbane. Depends on how much your host likes you. She moves again, this time faster, more frenetic. The second dancer follows, mirroring her, then overtaking her, then spinning away. It's a story in motion now, jealousy, seduction, battle, you can't quite tell. But your body leans forward as if gravity demands it. From the shadows, a third figure steps in, a woman with scarred shoulders and a half mask of ivory. She moves like someone who used to be military, every step controlled. She circles the other two, then fixes her gaze on you. That's when you realize the audience has vanished. Or maybe you've forgotten them. The three dancers converge in the center. They link hands, then slowly turn toward you. The man with the vine tattoos speaks not aloud, but in gesture, offering you something unseen. You say nothing. The masked woman nods. Then, with no warning, she spins, scatters the peacock feathers, and vanishes behind a curtain. Just like that, it's over. The dancers are gone. The platform is empty. A breeze lifts the corner of a curtain. Somewhere laughter picks up again. Music resumes, different now. Flute instead of drum. You glance down at your chest. The silver streak still glistens. Cold. Marked. A servant appears. Refreshment. He offers you a small tray, olives, candied pine nuts, and a single egg dyed black. You take the pine nuts. Your hands are still trembling. Another chamber awaits, he adds. Which one, you ask, voice hoarse. He just smiles. Whichever answers your footsteps first. Your footsteps don't echo, only sink. The rugs are thicker in this wing of the villa, the walls closer, the air heavier. Your pulse, though, that one you can hear loud and clear. Still marked with silver, your skin prickles each time you brush against silk-hung thresholds. The scent has shifted again, less floral now, more animal. Musk, ambergris, and something smoky like charred cedar in a bronze brazier. You turn a corner and find yourself in a corridor flanked by sculptures. Though these aren't the idealized gods of public squares. These are mortal, imperfect, intimate. One woman bears stretch marks on her marble thighs. Another figure male has a missing hand and a vine carved into his chest. Each has eyes hollowed deeply enough to hold candlelight. You're not alone here. Two men pass you, speaking Greek under their breath. They're shirtless, glistening, laughing. One carries a tray of dates soaked in wine. The other bites one mid-sentence and tosses the pit over his shoulder. You hear it land softly on a rug that's seen far worse. Then a new sound, the trickle of water. Not a fountain, something slower. You follow it. The corridor widens, opens, reveals a new space, the frigidarium. A cold plunge room, though nothing about it feels icy at first glance. The walls are tiled in pale green glass, and steam curls upward from a series of shallow pools sunk into the floor. Someone has scattered violets across the water, and their color pulses beneath the shifting lamplight. You hesitate at the threshold. A man lounging by the nearest pool sees your uncertainty and smirks. "It's not for cleansing," he says. "Not tonight. Tonight, it's for listening." You step in. There are half a dozen guests here, some submerged to the neck, others lounging along the edges like cats in sun. Some are entirely nude, some veiled in damp linen clinging to their skin. All of them are talking in low, layered whispers. And that's when you notice the acoustics. Every voice, no matter how soft, carries. The tiles are positioned to echo in strange, intimate loops. Secrets ripple here. Mutters rebound off stone. You hear things you were never meant to hear, except everyone's talking on purpose. The frigidarium isn't just a bath, it's an information marketplace. A mainstream historical detail worth knowing. Roman bathhouses often doubled as social and political hubs. Deals were made in the steam. Marriages arranged beside the cold pools. Betrayals whispered beneath towel folds. Even here, within a private villa, the same logic applies, just turned up a few scandalous notches. You ease down to the edge of a pool, dipping your feet into cold water that bites and then numbs. Across from you, a woman is speaking softly to two younger men, both leaning close. You recognize her, one of the chameleons from earlier, fluid in manner, unreadable in motive. If he arrives late, it means he's measuring risk, she says, or waiting to see who makes a fool of themselves first. One of the men chuckles, and if he doesn't arrive at all, then he's already won. They don't notice you. Or maybe they do, and simply don't care. You lean back against a warm wall. The heat radiating through the tiles contrasts the icy water nipping at your toes. The servant who led you here reappears, offering a cup of infused water with crushed mint and cucumber, more refreshing than luxurious, a reset button for the senses. A debate breaks out in the pool behind you. But Augustus banned them, did he not? Officially, yes. But his own daughter hosted more than one. Historians exaggerate. Julia was bold, not lewd. No lewd and bold. That's why we still whisper her name in places like this. This is where the night breathes between performances, where masks slip, where names suddenly mean something again. One man has a birthmark on his throat you recognize from a coin engraving. Another wears a ring bearing the seal of a family supposedly out of favor with the emperor. You realize quickly, secrets don't sleep here. They sweat. A fringe fact for your collection: in certain elite houses, it was common to salt these rooms with spies. Not in disguise, no. They'd simply listen, say little, and report later. Slaves trained from adolescence to remember exact words, tone, even body posture. Many were rewarded. Some disappeared. Back in the pool, a man brushes water from his shoulders and sighs. The Senate's been whispering about that new Eastern cult again. Which one? The one with drums and fire. Claims to purify desire through exhaustion. The emperor tried it last month, slept for 2 days. A laugh, then a pause, then so did his brother. But he didn't wake up. More laughter, but tighter this time. You file the detail away. It might be a joke, or a warning. A woman joins you now. She sits beside you without speaking, her knee barely touching yours. Her skin smells of myrrh and citrus. When she finally speaks, it's so quietly you wonder if it's meant for you at all. They say the wine earlier was laced with Syrian root. You look at her. It's a relaxant, she continues, or a truth serum. Depends how much you've eaten. You ask if she's felt anything. I never drink at these parties. She turns to face you. Not if I want to remember what matters. And then she stands, brushes a violet from her calf, and leaves. You don't follow. Your fingertips trail into the pool, drawing lazy spirals. The conversation swells again in one corner of the room. 2 men are discussing a slave's testimony. One swears it was coerced. The other claims it was a performance staged to blackmail a client. You recognize the name. A senator who toasted you earlier. You make a note never to be alone with him. Another historian hot topic, the presence of performative betrayal in elite Roman circles. There's evidence, shaky but persistent, that some parties were staged specifically to test loyalty. Guests would be baited with temptation, offered false secrets, then exposed. It was a social stress test, a loyalty trap, a spectacle of entrapment. And now it's getting colder. Or maybe your body is finally surrendering to the chill of the water. A few guests leave the chamber wrapped in towels, escorted by silent servants. Others slip fully into the pools, eyes closed, their mouths moving in soft soliloquies to no one. You feel your own mind start to drift. You wonder what someone else might overhear from your mouth if you relaxed too far. Would it be the truth, or just another performance somewhere above water drips? A distant laugh echoes from another room. The woman who marked you with silver earlier appears in the doorway. She's changed robes now, crimson with gold embroidery shaped like laurels. Her eyes meet yours. She doesn't speak. She just nods once and disappears again. You rise. Your feet ache from the cold tile. Your head hums, but your mind is clear. The frigidarium has served its purpose. You've heard more than you were supposed to. Now it's time to act like you heard nothing at all. You walk out of the frigidarium changed, not just chilled, but aware. Like someone who's peeked behind the curtain and seen the strings holding the puppets. The villa's air hits warmer now, clinging to your damp skin, drawing a shiver up your spine that has nothing to do with the temperature. You feel marked, not just by the silver streak, still faint on your collarbone, but by knowledge. Words you shouldn't have heard are now lodged in your memory like hidden daggers. The corridor outside is different, dimmer. Music still floats somewhere in the distance, harp strings now. Slower, more melancholic. A gentle rhythm that says you've passed through something and no one expects you to come out clean. Then comes a burst of laughter. Louder, drunken, several voices at once tumbling out of a chamber to your left. A heavy curtain sways open and shut like a breath. You step closer. Peering inside, you catch a flicker of color, of movement. And masks. Not the theatrical kind. These are full masks painted in bronze and ivory tones, each exaggerated into a permanent expression, grinning, frowning, sneering. You see the wearers behind them only barely, eyes glittering through narrow slits, bodies half draped in costume, half not at all. This is a play, clearly. But it's not on a stage. It's woven directly into the party. You enter the room quietly and take a place along the edge. The floor is scattered with cushions, low tables, bowls of nuts and fruit, but no one is eating. Every eye is focused on the action. In the middle of the chamber, two performers locked in a mock argument. Their voices are exaggerated, dramatic, tinged with sarcasm. One points an accusatory finger, and the other clutches his heart, as if pierced by it. You recognize the form, a tell-in farce, a popular genre in late Republic Rome. Bawdy, improvised, often obscene. Commoners loved it. So did patricians when no one was looking. And here it is, performed at an orgy. Historical fact time. A tell-in farce originated from the Oscan regions and became part of Roman entertainment, often parodying stock characters, braggarts, fools, lusty old men. Though frowned upon in elite settings, its exaggerated characters became a secret indulgence behind closed villa doors. It wasn't about taste. It was about knowing what to laugh at and when. The performance takes a turn. Now, a third masked player enters, draped in a flowing cloak. This one doesn't speak, but moves with slow, deliberate precision. The other two freeze, bowing low. And suddenly the audience around you gasps, lightly, theatrically. "She's picked the role of the queen again," someone whispers beside you. You glance over. A woman masked as well, with wine-dark lips and bare shoulders. She never speaks, she continues not looking at you, but she always wins. Sure enough, the silent figure lifts a hand, and the other performers fall to their knees. The audience laughs, claps, but no one's really laughing at the joke. They're laughing at the subtext, at the performance's clever parallels to the night's real dynamics. Because that's what this is, a mirror. These guests aren't just watching. They're judging, measuring, deciding who gets it and who's merely staring at the masks. You stay silent, observant, appropriate, and it pays off. After the scene ends, one of the performers, still masked, saunters over to where you sit. His grin beneath the ivory sneer is obvious. "You rid the queen," he says softly. "Not many do on their first night." He taps your shoulder lightly, playfully, a token of approval or recognition. Hard to say. "You're invited," he adds, "if she picks you." He slips back into the crowd. You exhale. A few guests are already pairing off, drifting into the next chamber. One man tosses his mask into the air and catches it behind his back, drawing applause. Another woman takes a bow, though she never stepped into the circle. You spot the queen again, her mask still on her robe, trailing like liquid shadow. Two men flank her now like ceremonial guards. She glides past without speaking. Then she stops, turns, looks at you, and gestures once slowly as if tracing a symbol into the air. The crowd murmurs, someone chuckles knowingly. You've been acknowledged. It's not just performance, not anymore. One fringe tidbit: elite Romans believed that masks could absorb spirit or energy. A mask worn during a powerful performance was thought to remember it. Some kept them in shrines. Others burned them after a night like this to avoid unwanted hauntings. Whether superstition or strategy, no one wore a mask lightly. You're not handed a mask, though. You're handed a cup. Another servant, this one older with streaks of white in his beard. He places it in your palm like it's ceremonial. "It's yours now," he says. The drink is darker than before, thicker. You sip cautiously. It's wine, but infused with something floral, something bitter. You taste poppy, maybe saffron. Your throat warms, your mind loosens. Suddenly the chamber tilts again. Not physically, just your senses sliding in a new direction. The air feels textured, the laughter closer, your own heartbeat a little louder in your ears. You hear names now whispered behind fans. Lucius brought a gift too large for modesty. Did you see her? Took the mask and the mirror. The queen hasn't chosen two in years. Gossip isn't an accident here. It's the next act. The queen has moved on. Her silent procession glides down another hallway. The audience follows some close behind others, drifting at leisure. The performance was never just in the room. It moves like scent, like power. You rise too, not hurried, deliberate. Because you've just been cast in someone else's story, and it's impolite not to play along. You walk down the corridor she entered. No lamps line the way now. Just candles flickering in wall nooks, casting long shadows that quiver with every step. Each niche carved with a different face. Some grimacing, some laughing. All with open mouths. It's said these were placed here to swallow secrets. You don't know if that's true, but you speak nothing as you pass them. Just before you reach the next chamber, you hear a voice dry, older, amused. She gestures to those who hesitate the most. She always did prefer restraint to hunger. You glance over. An old man alone, dressed plainly. No robe, no jewelry. Just eyes too sharp to belong to someone drunk. "You'll be fine," he says, "unless you're too clever." That tends to disappoint her. Then he looks away. The curtain ahead is heavier than the others, red velvet stiff with embroidery. You don't part it. It parts for you. The curtain draws back soundlessly, and the room before you isn't quite a room. It's a set, a deliberate construction, meant to evoke something old and primal. The walls are draped in sheer fabric, dyed sunset hues, from blood orange to dusk purple. Pillars carved with vines frame the space, and torches crackle with perfumed smoke that bites the eyes and softens the lungs. The ceiling is open, at least partially, revealing slivers of night sky stars, blinking like indifferent gods. And in the middle of it, all performers. 5 of them, masked, oiled barefoot. Their bodies painted with swirls of blue and gold, each one portraying a character older than Rome itself. Satyrs, nymphs, river gods, maybe. They're moving in a slow circle, weaving in and out, passing goblets, fruit, and veiled glances. It's not clear whether this is a dance or a ritual. Probably both. Here the difference is academic. The queen stands at the center. Her mask is still on ivory with thin golden trim around the eyes. She's exchanged the crimson robe for one of black silk that trails the ground like ink in water. A belt of linked coins rests on her hips, each one stamped with a different emperor's face. She raises one arm, and everything stills. The torches sputter once, as if bowing to her. You inhale the scented smoke too deeply, and cough once, but quietly. No one looks. The performance resumes. A flute begins high and tremulous, followed by a drum with a heartbeat rhythm. The satyrs take center, now chasing the nymphs in wide, slow arcs. It's playful at first, then sharper. The nymphs don't run, they dare. They flick their wrists, expose their throats, step into traps, and smile as they're caught. It's not flirtation. It's a game of power, ancient and staged, but also real in the moment. The queen turns toward you. She raises a goblet not as a toast, but as a summons, a silent command wrapped in civility. You walk forward. The guests lining the chamber's edge murmur as you pass. Some laugh softly, as if remembering their own summons. Some whisper predictions. She'll test him. He's too cautious. She'll lose interest. He's been marked. That's rare, indeed. Your silver mark still glints faintly in the torchlight. You stop a few paces from her. You don't kneel, you don't speak. You wait, and she approves. She lowers her goblet and offers you something more potent than wine attention. Her gaze lingers, piercing through her mask as though it were transparent. You can't see her eyes, but you feel them, measuring, weighing, maybe even playing. Then she turns her back and steps into the circle. One of the nymphs hands her a staff carved with ivy and hung with bells. She raises it once chime and all movement halts. The flute fades out. The queen touches the nearest satyr's forehead with the staff. He bows. She moves to the next, marking them the same. Then to the nymphs. When all 5 have been tapped, they begin again, this time faster, more chaotic. They clash, they spin, they laugh too loudly. The queen turns and offers the staff to you. This is not a role you expected, but here you are. You take it. It's heavier than it looks. The bells are small, but real, ancient looking. You raise it not confidently, but without hesitation, and strike the air once. The bells chime. The performers freeze again, then laugh, then collapse into the cushions like exhausted animals. The game is over. Or maybe this was the game all along. Someone behind you claps. Another calls out, he has rhythm, or blind luck. The queen lifts her mask, only slightly, just enough to reveal her mouth. She smiles, not warmly, then says, the god favors bold fools. Laughter erupts, but not cruelly. You're being inducted, not mocked. Mainstream historical context, Roman aristocrats were obsessed with mimicry of divine rituals. They reenacted myth, dressed as gods, even engaged in symbolic rituals invoking divine favor. This wasn't seen as sacrilegious. On the contrary, it was flirtation with the divine. Some claimed it guaranteed fertility, success, or protection. Others just liked the costumes. The queen gestures for you to join her on the cushions. You sit, and immediately a servant, silent smooth, places a dish before you: figs, honey, a slice of soft cheese infused with lavender, and a pale pink sauce you can't identify. You eat none of it, she notices. Trust issues, she says, almost amused. Selective appetite, you counter. That earns a full laugh. Just one, short and sharp. Tell me, she asks, voice lower now. Do you understand what you've joined? You consider your answer. Carefully, no, you say, and I think that's the point. She leans forward, studying you, as if your answer were etched in a language she only half remembers. Good, she says finally. Mystery is more useful than certainty. The performers rise again now, no longer roles, just people. The illusion has shifted, not ended. The game never stops. It simply morphs. You ask her, why the queen? Because I didn't want to be the empress, she replies. That role ends in blood. A dark joke, but likely true. One quirky fringe detail within Rome's elite guests often crafted recurring roles for themselves at parties like this. It wasn't play, it was self-mythologizing. One woman reportedly appeared as Diana every Saturnalia for 20 years. Another man refused to be addressed by any name but Echo, and only ever whispered replies. You're learning the rules. Invent your place. Make it stick. Reinvent only if you survive the fallout. You ask her name. She replies with a question. What's yours? You lie. Gently. And she nods as if that's the only acceptable answer. The staff still rests beside you. The bells no longer ring, but they hum in your ears like remembered music. The queen stands. I'm finished with this room, she says. A man near the entrance bows. Shall I inform the poet? No need, she replies. He'll follow. As she moves past her robe, brushes your shoulder. You've done well, she murmurs. But don't stay too long. The next room is less forgiving. Then she's gone. You exhale. The performer who played the nymph approaches you now. Without the mask, she looks younger, tired. Her hands still streaked with gold paint. Next time she says tap twice. That signals reversal. You nod, storing the advice somewhere between useful and symbolic. Another guest joins you. He pours his own wine and leans back on the cushions. You've impressed her, he says. for tonight. You ask what happens when the queen tires of someone he sips. Smiles. She doesn't. She just stops noticing. And here that's worse than death. The torches flicker again. A servant appears. This one doesn't speak, only holds up a clay tablet with a symbol scratched into the surface, your mask. The comedy mask. An invitation. Or a summons. You rise and walk toward the next room. The servant with the clay tablet leads you down a narrow passage. No grand arches here, no perfumed torches. Just silence. The kind that makes you aware of your own breath, your own heartbeat, your own uncertainty. The silver mark on your collarbone has dried, now flaked a little, like the remains of some sacred dust. You brush it lightly, but not off. There's something about it that feels earned. The corridor bends, and then again. You're being funneled. And finally, the path opens into a wide chamber bathed in low amber light. This, you immediately understand, is not a stage. This room is for reflection or for judgment, possibly both. It's quiet, but not empty. There are couches here arranged not in clusters like before, but in a spiral that winds inward. And at the very center, a single lectus, a Roman-style couch, more ornate than the others, carved from ivory and inlaid with lapis. No one occupies it. Not yet. Servants move silently along the outer ring, distributing wine water, soft cushions, small dishes of nuts, and peppered fruit. You take a place along the outer edge. So do others' guests. You recognize faces from earlier, each now changed in subtle ways. Robes looser, hair tousled, posture more relaxed, or more defensive. This is the reclining chamber. And as the name suggests, what happens here is not physical, not entirely. This is where roles become fixed or fractured. A man leans over and offers you a grape. You accept it. He doesn't speak, just smiles and gestures toward the center of the room. No one lies there, he says, unless invited. Another woman murmurs from behind you, and those who aren't invited sometimes try. Once. She doesn't elaborate. You begin to notice the pattern this room is arranged to watch the center. Every cushion is angled toward that one couch. Every goblet raised is done so in a line of sight. This is a room designed for observation, but more than that, for declaration. Because in Rome, silence was a luxury only the powerful could afford. And here that silence is being performed. The host enters now, not flamboyantly, not like before. This time he's alone. No girls with goblets, no fanfare. He wears a plain tunic, no belt, no jewelry, no shoes. And yet everyone sits straighter. He makes his way to the center, not looking at anyone, not acknowledging the murmurs. He reclines on the central couch, places both hands on his knees, and exhales. Then let us forget ourselves, he says, so that we may be remembered. The room stills. This is the cue. A man young with a scar above one brow steps forward and begins to speak. Not loudly, not with flourish. Simply, my name is Gaius. I am the third son of a man who named all his children after emperors. I have 2 debts, 1 broken engagement, and the ear of a governor in Sicilia. Soft chuckles ripple across the room. He bows slightly and retreats. Next, a woman. Her hair is braided with tiny pearls, her voice flat as a dagger's edge. I have no name tonight, but I brought with me a scroll written in a dead language and gave it to the queen. She smiled, which I think means she understood. Or maybe she liked the paper. Laughter. Louder this time. You start to see the pattern. This is a ritual of positioning, a way to establish who you are within this particular dreamscape of influence and absurdity. You don't state your status here, you imply it. Through wit, through subtlety, through what you don't say. Mainstream historical fact. Roman banquets often included a post-dinner convivium, a structured period of entertainment that wasn't just music and poetry, but social maneuvering. Here, identity was a fluid thing. One could become someone else entirely for a night, as long as they played the game. And in this chamber, that game is sacred. Someone beside you nudges your foot, a gentle signal. It's your turn. You rise slowly. You don't walk toward the center couch. That would be arrogance. You step just one ring closer enough to be seen, but not to challenge the host's place. You pause. Let silence form around you. Then I was handed a mask I didn't choose. I accepted it. I haven't taken it off. That may be wisdom or cowardice. But I've been marked, summoned, and spared. I haven't touched the figs, and I still remember every name spoken in the frigidarium. Silence. Then a single laugh. Not mocking, recognizing. The host's head tilts slightly in your direction. He says nothing, but someone hands you a goblet. Not wine, water, icy cold. That's a message. Refresh, but stay sober. You're being watched. A fringe historical detail in elite Roman gatherings, being handed water instead of wine wasn't an insult. It was a signal you're valuable tonight. Stay clear. Stay sharp. Don't lose yourself. Not yet. The circle continues. A performer from earlier shares a poem. Another guest recites a line from Cicero, then twists it into satire. One man simply tells a joke, filthy perfect. The chamber roars with laughter, and then without announcement, the queen enters. She's in a different gown now. Simpler. Hair down. No mask. And no one looks directly at her. That's the rule. She doesn't speak, just walks a slow arc around the outer ring, passing behind guests, brushing shoulders, pausing behind those she approves of. When she passes you, her fingers lightly graze your shoulder. Then she stops, in front of the host, and lies down beside him, not on him. Facing away, not toward the guests. A collective exhale. You've just witnessed a gesture of alignment. She's not replacing him. She's reinforcing him. And now the center is no longer one figure, but two. Balanced. Someone mutters, "Well, there goes the senator's plan." Another whispers, "That's why the poet drank." One mainstream debate among scholars were these positions like host and queen prearranged or improvised through the night. Some claim they were predetermined roles decided before the party even began. Others argue they were fluid, earned through subtle power plays, gestures, alliances, moments like this. You're leaning toward the latter, because tonight has made it clear nothing here is accidental. Every glance, every silence, every fruit left uneaten, it means something. And in this chamber, the game of meanings is the highest form of performance. Eventually, the host lifts his hand again. "We have reclined long enough," he says. It's the cue. A slow, collective rise. Not everyone stands. Some remain on the cushions as if fading into dreams. But for those who rise, another path awaits. This time, the servants carry candles, tall ones held in bronze holders shaped like wolves. The symbolism is clear. You are being led toward a hunt. The procession is silent, save for the faint hiss of dripping wax from the candles. You walk among wolves now, not in the poetic sense, not as a metaphor, but literally. The bronze candelabras clutched by the servants are cast in the shapes of snarling lupine heads, each mouth agape to cradle the flame. Their eyes are gems, onyx, gleaming in the firelight like something alive. If the earlier chambers were a performance of grace and seduction, this one promises something more primal. You descend a staircase, not grand, but long, curling tightly like a snail shell. The air cools as you go and the walls roughen. No polished marble here, No mosaics, just exposed stone flickering shadows and the thud of your own breath echoing back at you in waves. You could be anywhere now beneath a temple, inside a tomb, walking into the mouth of myth itself. This is no accident. You are meant to feel like you're leaving the world behind. The corridor opens. No curtain this time. No veil. Just a stone arch carved with 3 words in Latin: ubique animal latet. Everywhere the beast lies hidden. Welcome to the room of games. You hesitate just inside. So does everyone else. It's instinctual. The space demands assessment, like a chessboard or a battlefield. The floor is patterned in concentric circles, alternating stone and bronze, and the center is sunken slightly like a shallow arena. Couches line the outer edge. Instruments lie on low tables, pipes, dice cups, scrolls, masks. All tools you realize for whatever games are about to unfold. Your host is already there, leaning against a pillar, speaking quietly with a tall woman you haven't seen before. She wears a short tunic belted with chain links and a dagger strapped to one thigh. Likely ceremonial. Possibly not. Her laugh is dry and sharp, like sand against silk. A man steps forward and tosses a small object into the center pit. It lands with a soft clink. A coin. Fate begins, he says, bowing out. A servant steps forward with a small amphora, pours a dark liquid into 5 goblets, places them in a circle. You realize quickly this is no mere drinking game. Your host claps once. The game is glances and deceptions. Those who play must speak only in truths, except when they don't. Soft laughter. The rules, such as they are, remain intentionally vague. The first lie earns a fig, the second wine, the third. He pauses banishment from the inner circle. Another laugh. Louder, but not warm. Games like this weren't uncommon among Rome's elite. Mainstream historical fact, elite Romans, especially under emperors like Tiberius and Domitian, were known to orchestrate guessing games that were really trials of loyalty, wit, or hidden agendas. They weren't always harmless. Mistakes here could echo into the Senate. A servant hands you a scroll. Your instruction is simple. Write a confession. Sign no name. Read it only if chosen. You glance around. Others are already writing. One man does it with a flourish. A woman draws a small image beside hers, a crescent moon. You unroll yours thinking. You write something true. Something that could be a lie. Something that's neither, and you fold it. No sooner is the game underway than a scroll is chosen randomly, theatrically. The host reads, "I once watched a man drown in a pool because I mistook his cries for laughter." Gasps, nervous chuckles. He raises an eyebrow. "Who among us claims this? No one speaks." Then he says someone lied in ink. Let's see how they lie in flesh. The goblets are passed. Each player must take 1 drink and speak a single sentence, either confession or contradiction, and never admit which. The queen is among the players now. She drinks last. Her voice is smooth. "I have never asked for permission." Silence. Then a smile from the woman with the thigh dagger. "Nor should you." The coin from earlier is passed now, person to person. Whoever holds it may challenge another to speak or to act. You're not called, not yet. But you observe. That's your game. You notice who flinches when questioned, who smiles too fast, who licks their lips before answering a senator with trembling fingers. He's losing already, even if no one names it. A servant brings a fig on a golden dish. Someone lied. No one admits it. The coin lands in your lap. All eyes on you now. You could challenge. You could speak. Or you could rise. You do the unexpected. You peel the fig and eat it. Laughter bursts around you, genuine surprise. The host smiles wide. Our masked friend prefers to own the lie. The queen raises her glass in your direction. You may yet survive this night. Another scroll is opened. Another confession, this one sharper. I touched the queen's hand when she was promised to another. Her expression doesn't change. She simply says, "He's not alive anymore." You can't tell if she's joking. Scholars still debate whether such parties actually contained these dangerous rituals, or if the written accounts were literary flourishes meant to condemn decadence. Suetonius, Tacitus, Juvenal all painted the elite as wolves in silk. But records of whispered trials and shadowy games persist. This chamber you suspect was built for reenactment, yes, but also for continuation. You don't play again. You're not asked. Your fig-eating move earned you space, but also suspicion. Well played. Eventually, the host stands. The game is complete. One liar remains unmarked. He tosses a final token into the center, an ivory chip carved with an owl. Wisdom doesn't win, he says, but it lingers. Then the lights dim. Not out, just down. And now a different kind of game begins. A door opens, not a curtain. An actual door, thick wood studded with bronze. Beyond it, you glimpse a room filled with mirrors, candlelit. Still. The queen brushes past you without looking. Her robe smells of pomegranate and sandalwood. The host doesn't follow. He stays behind. You step forward. A servant taps your shoulder once. You reclined near the center. You pass the fig. You saw the queen's hand. You wait for a question. But there is none. Only you are invited to observe the next room. Only to observe. You nod. It's a lie. But tonight, that's part of the truth. The door to the next chamber groans open, deliberately slow, as if the villa itself is reluctant to reveal what's inside. You step through and everything feels reversed. No more velvet. No perfumed air. This room is colder, quieter, and the light, if it can be called that, is silver cast by candlelight, reflected 100 times over in the polished surfaces that line the walls. Welcome to the mirror room. At first glance, it's simple, an octagonal space, each wall a full-length mirror framed in black marble veined with gold. But then you move, and your reflection multiplies. Doubles, triples. No matter where you stand, you see yourself and others from angles that feel unnatural, fractured, intimate. There are no couches here, no tables, just soft floor cushions in a ring around the center where a single glass pedestal waits. Empty, beckoning. A servant enters behind you and extinguishes the last torch. Only the candles remain now tucked into sconces shaped like open eyes. You've been told to observe, so you do. Figures begin to trickle in, silently, like ghosts accepting a final invitation. You recognize some, the woman who whispered about Syrian root in the bath, the man who played the farce mask, the silent satyr from the dance. Each guest moves like this is sacred space. And finally, the queen. Her robe tonight is silver-threaded, nearly white. It's sleeveless. It pools around her bare feet like milk poured on stone. No mask, no crown. Only her eyes are unchanged, serene, unreadable, like those carved into temple statues. She enters alone, but not unarmed. A thin rod of polished wood rests in her hand, capped with a mirror shard affixed to the tip. Decorative, certainly. Symbolic, undoubtedly. But you suspect it would hurt if used with purpose. She walks to the pedestal, places the rod gently upon it, and the room begins. No one speaks. They just take their seats, slowly forming the circle. You hang back, lingering near the door, true to your word, observing. A woman seated closest to the queen reaches into a small satchel and draws out an object, a brooch. gilded, shaped like a serpent biting its own tail. She places it on the pedestal. The queen looks at it, just once, then nods. Another guest follows, a scroll, another a tiny mirror already cracked. You're watching an offering ritual. Each object is a story. Each carries weight. None are explained. That's the rule here. No names, no justifications, just gifts. This wasn't invented for the party. This predates it. Mainstream history time. In several Roman mystery cults, like the Eleusinian or Dionysian rites, initiates presented symbolic objects in silence as proof of understanding. These tokens were never explained to outsiders. To share them was to break the mystery. In elite Roman society, some parties mimicked this exact format, turning sacred ceremony into social game. But in this room, it feels like something more. The queen finally lifts the rod. She points not at a person, but at a mirror, and the room tilts again. Everyone turns to face their reflection. Even you. But what you see in yours, you're not sure it's just you. The candlelight bends, your shape stretches your eyes. For a moment, your silver mark appears to hover above your skin, not on it. The glass captures not how you look, but how you're seen, and in this villa that's far more dangerous. Then her voice, soft, close inside your chest, one by one. The woman who brought the serpent brooch speaks. I give what guards me. That's all she says. She places both hands on her knees and stares straight ahead. The queen nods once. Next, the cracked mirror. I give what I broke. The scroll, I give what no one was meant to read. A man steps forward with nothing in his hands. I give absence. He is accepted too. Then the queen speaks, and the mirrors respond. Each one dims just slightly. The room contracts not physically but perceptually. The circle feels tighter, the walls closer, and in the glass something changes. No longer just reflections, now versions. Your own reflection now raises its chin higher than you are, holds its breath longer, smirks slightly. It's not wrong, but it's not you. You're not the only one seeing this. Someone gasps. Another guest stumbles back. A man covers his face and refuses to look at the mirrors again. A woman laughs once sharp and then sobs into her hands. This room is a weapon, but you were invited here, so you hold your gaze. The queen places one hand on the pedestal, then turns to you, finally directly. You may observe, she says. But the mirror watches back. She gestures. A servant lifts another candle, places it beside you. An invitation, not to offer, not yet, just to be seen. And so you step into the edge of the ring. Now your reflection is clearer, not warped, not stretched, just honest. And it's worse. It shows everything you've tried to keep folded inside this evening, your suspicion, your awe, your strategy, your moments of stillness that were not restraint, but confusion. The mask you wore wasn't false, but it wasn't full. The mirror sees that, and so does she. She says you are becoming. It sounds like approval. It might be warning. One fringe historical tidbit in some elite Roman cultic reenactments initiates were told they'd meet themselves before they could ascend to inner ranks. The ritual often involved mirrored pools, shadow-lit rooms, or guided dreams. No record ever details what they saw, only that they came back different, if they came back at all. The queen waves a hand. The circle stands. Objects are removed. The pedestal is cleared. The rod is gone. The candles are snuffed one by one. And as each flame dies, a different mirror fogs. A different guest vanishes through a door you can't see. Soon you are alone again. Except for her. She walks past you, not quickly, not purposefully, just passed. And you hear her whisper, more breath than voice, now you've been seen. Let's see if you remember. Then she's gone. You're left with your reflection. Still, breathing, watching. You turn away before it does something else. You don't remember the door behind you opening or closing. But when you step out of the mirror room, the villa feels changed. Not louder, not darker, just aware. As though the walls now recognize you. As though the marble under your feet holds the imprint of your last hesitation. You're not handed wine. You're not greeted with fanfare. A simple servant, a boy with a crooked nose and no expression leads you forward. This time there's no mask, no game piece, no scroll. You're being shown something you were never meant to see. You're moving behind the laurel curtain now. No, not a metaphor. An actual laurel curtain woven with real leaves and bronze thread framing a narrow passage with walls too close and lighting too precise. One wrong step and the hem of your tunic might brush against an oil lamp and set the whole thing ablaze. The path curves sharply, and what unfolds ahead of you is not a room, it's a corridor of architecture and control. You are for the first time tonight in the space used by the villa's servants, but designed for the eyes of the elite. The walls here are porous, thin slats, gaps behind ornamental screens. You see the chambers you've already visited, but from new angles, the red room, the frigidarium, even the game circle. You see guests laughing, posturing, kissing, arguing, all unaware they're being watched, and not just by you. A girl sits silently in one of the hidden alcoves, knees drawn to her chest, her face painted white with a smudge of coal at each eye like a mime. She sees you but doesn't react. A thin tablet rests on her lap. She's writing something, possibly about you. This, you realize, is where the slaves and house staff observe. This is where instructions are relayed, where performances are coordinated, where guests are evaluated not by title, but by behavior. One historical fact that rarely makes the marble busts Roman villas, especially those used for pleasure, were designed with slave corridors, secret passageways and observation points, not just for efficiency, but for control. These weren't just servants, they were the stagehands of Rome's most private theaters, and their memory was flawless. You step past the mime girl. She doesn't move. Further down, you see a servant adjusting a mirror angle from behind the wall just slightly, enough to let someone on the other side of the villa catch a glimpse of the queen in profile. He's timing it. Precisely. When she turns, when she sips, when she doesn't look. You're witnessing the architecture of seduction, of surveillance, of subversion. A door ahead, barely more than a slit, leads into a tiny chamber lined with pulleys and ropes. One controls the fragrance that floods a particular chamber. Another adjusts the lighting so a guest appears more flushed or more statuesque. A third rope, marked only by a bronze ring, causes a curtain to fall silently across an archway. Nothing is random. The poet from earlier, remember him? The one who quoted Ovid and wore gold paint. He's reclining alone in a chamber, now a goblet tipped against his lip. But as you watch from behind the screen, you see what he doesn't, a small vial of dark liquid being slipped into his wine by a slave who never meets his eyes. Moments later, a woman enters and replaces his goblet with a different one. The first goblet disappears. Performance, or protection, or punishment, you'll never know. And maybe that's the point. You hear a laugh behind you, low, amused. You turn, the host. He's standing beside a panel in the wall, hands behind his back, watching the mirrored room you just left. His tunic is different now, darker, simpler, almost clerical. I told you, he says without looking at you, this house runs on more than wine. You say nothing. He finally turns. There are truths that must be seen in reflection, he says, but others only reveal themselves in corners, in thresholds, in margins. You glance again at the corridor behind you. The girl is gone. So is the mirror-adjusting servant. The rope room door is now closed. He continues. The guests believe they move freely, that their choices shape the night. You nod slowly, and they do. He adds almost wistfully, within a very carefully curated range. He walks past you, running one hand along the wall. It glides smoothly, familiar. They forget that performance requires audience, and the audience must be managed. Then he stops, looks at you. Now you're one of the few who knows what they know. And he gestures toward a slit in the wall. You peer through it. You see the queen. She's in a smaller chamber now, half lit, flanked by only 2 guests. She's speaking, but not seductively, sternly, purposefully, and no one is interrupting. She's not just beautiful, the host says quietly. She's invested. She's chosen. That word rings. Chosen, not invited, not appointed, selected, or self-selected. Then he asks softly, "Do you want to know how many eyes saw you tonight?" You don't answer, but he does. All of them. He starts walking again. "Don't be flattered," he adds over his shoulder. "Be careful." That's when you notice the tablet resting on a shelf beside the rope wall. It's covered in small etchings, just initials, symbols, marks. You don't recognize most. But yours, it's there, freshly drawn. Next to it, a small, curved line. Not a smile, not a frown, just a curve, meaning unknown. Fringe, tidbit. In some elite Roman households, there was a record and invisible scorekeeping system used by the slaves and the host. Guests were rated silently, not just by status, but by how they behaved. Who was generous? Who was cruel? Who might return? Who never would? Some hosts used these ratings to decide invitations. Others used them to plan revenge. You step back. The wall slides shut behind you. No sound. You're in the main corridor again. Only now the villa feels smaller. Not literally, just tighter. Like the walls now hold your secrets too. And as you walk toward the next chamber, one thought echoes louder than any music. You're not just inside the story anymore. You're being written into it. There's a hush in the air now, a stillness that doesn't invite calm, but demands attention. As you step away from the hidden servant corridors and rejoin the patterned arteries of the villa, your skin feels slightly tighter. The weight of being seen, truly seen, clings to you like humidity. The silver on your collarbone is long gone, but its echo remains in your posture. You walk differently now, more measured, as if the floor beneath your feet might report back to someone. And maybe it will. You hear music ahead, not the languid strings of earlier rooms. This is bolder brazier. Pipes, tambourines, a low rhythmic thrum that vibrates in your ribs like a second heartbeat. The sound doesn't ask you to follow it. It dares you to. You do. The chamber you enter is grand in size, but strangely dim. Candles glow from niches carved into the walls, but none rest near eye level. The light is low, flickering, engineered for shadows. And there, center stage, a man dressed as Jupiter, or at least someone pretending to be. He sits on a dais draped in lion skins with a laurel crown crooked on his head and a golden rod clutched in one hand. His robe is cinched at the waist with a heavy chain, and each link glints with oil and dust. A goblet rests on a table beside him, steaming faintly. This is not a performance in the casual sense. This is something closer to divine role play. No one speaks as you enter. The room is silent, not because there's nothing to say, but because the man on the dais has claimed every breath with his presence. He sees you. Of course he does. You're late, he says. His voice echoes, artificially amplified by the architecture, or perhaps by trained vocal cords honed in Senate oratory. You arrived without thunder. That's suspicious. You bow slightly. The response expected of one not playing a god. He smirks. Ah, modesty. The rarest virtue in this house. A few guests chuckle nervously. Mainstream historical fact. It wasn't uncommon for Roman elites to emulate deities during private gatherings, sometimes mockingly, sometimes with unsettling sincerity. Emperors like Caligula were infamous for declaring themselves gods at dinners and orgies. But even lower-tier aristocrats played the part, especially in spaces where ego inflated with incense and applause. The Jupiter gestures for wine. A servant rushes forward, head-bowed, body nearly trembling. It's not clear whether he's a slave, an actor, or both. The distinction is intentionally blurred here. Jupiter drinks. The goblet hides his mouth, but his eyes remain locked on you. Then he speaks again, slow and deliberate. They say you held the mirror's gaze, that you saw something unflattering. You offer no response. He smiles wider. They also say the queen touched your shoulder. That's more dangerous than any lie. The chamber shifts now, not physically, but emotionally. The guests, half lounging, half posed, like audience plants, lean forward slightly. Their expressions tighten. This is no casual exchange. You're being tested or provoked. Tell me, he says, what did the mirror show you? A pause. You choose your answer carefully. A mask I didn't know I'd worn. His eyes flash, pleased, or maybe amused. He leans back. Ah, the favorite response of those who fear their own reflection. He waves a hand. A servant steps forward and places a small object at your feet, a gold coin etched with a thunderbolt. The god has noticed you, he says. Then louder. Let it be known this one has entered the storm willingly. Laughter. Applause even, but it's performative, ritualized. This is not a reward. This is a binding. You pick up the coin. It's heavier than it should be. Jupiter turns away from you now and gestures toward a woman reclining near the dais. Her gown is pinned with real feathers and her hair is braided with tiny bells. She rises and approaches the center of the room, taking position in front of the dais. And just like that, a new scene begins. The woman kneels. She holds out a scroll. Jupiter refuses it with a scoff. She pleads. He laughs. She accuses. He thunders. It's all a play. And yet, the emotions aren't entirely feigned. There's heat in her voice, veins in her throat, sweat on her brow. He strikes the dais with his rod, and the sound makes several guests flinch. Then she stands and recites a poem in Greek. You catch only pieces of it. The god who tastes honey on one side and venom on the other. The storm that hides beneath a kiss. You struck me only after I smiled. The chamber is completely still. Then, as suddenly as it began, the performance ends. She bows. He nods. A servant throws rose petals at their feet. Everyone applauds, some sincerely, others out of habit. And then Jupiter looks at you again. You hold the thunder now, he says, gesturing to your coin. You may strike once before midnight. A few heads turn, murmurs ripple. You've been given a token of disruption, one quirky fringe detail worth noting. At some Roman parties, select guests were handed tokens that allowed them to interrupt performances once without consequence. These moments were opportunities for spectacle or sabotage. To strike meant to challenge a performer, correct a lie, or alter the course of a room's narrative. To do so wrongly, however, was unforgettable. in a very permanent way. The clock isn't literal, but the pressure is. You step back into the shadows, coin in hand, heartbeat faster than it should be. From across the chamber, a woman whispers to a man wearing a swan feather collar, "He won't use it." And the man replies, "Oh, he will. But not on Jupiter." And again, that electric sense runs down your spine, not fear exactly, just anticipation. The god reclines once more. The guests resume their positions. But you're holding lightning in your hand, and everyone knows it. The coin burns colder than metal should. Not literally, but there's a weight to it now. Psychological, performative, maybe even mystical. You slide it into the fold of your tunic, feeling its presence like a second heartbeat. Everyone in that chamber saw you take it. Everyone knows you've been handed a single moment of power. And that means you've also been handed a target. You step away from the god, from the thunder. The corridor you follow this time is narrow, but not hidden. Ornate sconces, shaped like open mouths, line the walls, each spitting a small plume of flame. Above them, frescoes depict Olympus in chaos, Juno casting bolts at a weeping Venus-Mars asleep while cities burn. It's a parody of divine order staged to resemble political satire. A nod, perhaps, to the emperors who fancied themselves immortal and fell anyway. You don't walk long before another chamber yawns open, the scent of musk and sandalwood pouring into the hallway, like a hand pulling you in. Voices rise and fall, not loud, but sharp, focused, calculated. This is no stage. This is negotiation. You've entered the senator's room. It's more formal than the others in shape, if not in content. Couches line 3 of the 4 walls. In the center sits a marble table inlaid with an astrological chart. At its corners, bowls of olives, honeyed nuts, and a carafe of wine so dark it reflects no light at all. There are only 7 guests here, but they're heavyweights. 3 senators easily identified by the stiff way they hold their shoulders. A freedwoman wrapped in crimson silk, fingers heavy with rings. A merchant you recognize from earlier, still too loud in his gold-threaded tunic. And the last 2, one is the queen. The other is you. Because when she sees you step in, she gestures toward the open space beside her. Not a word, just one hand palm down, an invitation, a command, a performance. You recline, not too far, not too casually. Just enough to suggest ease without forgetting what this room is. There's a pause. Everyone sees it, the queen breaking the silence by making space for you. Then a senator leans forward, his voice smooth, laced with wine and warning. You arrived late to the table. You meet his gaze. I wasn't hungry, until now. He smiles but doesn't blink. The queen says nothing. She sips her wine. You're left to interpret the silence and respond accordingly. So you do. You ask the merchant, "What did you lose tonight?" He blinks. "Excuse me, in the games, in the glances. What did you place on the table and fail to win back?" The room quiets. He fidgets. A few coins? A scroll? The freedwoman laughs. "You mean that scroll, the one the poet said read like wet laundry," chuckles, smirks. Even the senators allow themselves a crooked grin. The merchant's face tightens. "Score 1 for you." The queen places her goblet down gently. He's learned the tone. Not praise, just notation. And that's when the real conversation begins. It's not about politics, not openly. That would be gauche. It's about wine tariffs in Ephesus, about the price of saffron futures, about a certain general's 3rd wife who reportedly hasn't returned from the spa since Saturnalia. But between every line power, the freedwoman steers the topic toward property. She speaks of a villa she no longer wants on the coast near Pompeii. One of the senators offers a buyer. The merchant offers a trade. The queen offers nothing. Then a senator turns to you. You hold a strike, he says. A murmur follows. Yes. The coin. It hasn't been used. You shrug. Thunder isn't given to stop small storms. The queen raises one eyebrow. That's the first time you've surprised her. Historical truth time. During certain elite Roman gatherings, senators and powerful women used salons like these to stage unofficial diplomacy. Deals in drapery, as some poets called them. Everything was veiled, nothing recorded. But many a law, marriage, or death began at a dinner party with too much saffron and too little accountability. And sometimes, just sometimes, someone like you was invited to witness it, to tip it, to be used, or to use them. The merchant suddenly shifts tactics. He turns to you. You arrived without an escort. That's unusual. The room tilts. It's a veiled accusation. The queen replies for you, her voice soft, but her eyes sharp. He arrived as curiosity. He remains as consequence. A beat. No one counters her, but you do lean forward just slightly. You ask the merchant, have you ever played the second son in a tragedy? He frowns. What the character who does everything right, but still gets nothing? He shrugs. I'm no actor. Exactly. You sip your wine. The queen smiles behind her goblet. Another moment passes, and then the door opens. A servant enters, not speaking, just holding a scroll sealed with red wax. He walks straight to you, kneels, offers it. You take it. The seal bears a wolf's head, the same design as the candle holders from the earlier corridor. You're being summoned. You rise. The queen does not stop you, but she does speak as you step away. Remember, she says, power isn't used, it's believed in. You nod, and as you step into the hallway again, the scroll unopened in your hand, you realize something that chills you more than the frigidarium ever did. You haven't been drifting through this night. You've been navigated. By whom, still unclear. But the coin is still in your tunic, and the strike is still yours to make. For now. The scroll in your hand feels heavier than the coin in your tunic, not in weight, but in implication. The red wax seal remains unbroken, the wolf's head glinting faintly in the lamplight. Its eyes are pressed deep, too round, too wide, like it's watching you even now. You don't open it. Not yet. That would be premature. Instead, you follow the servant's path through another veiled corridor narrower than the rest. The scent here is different, old incense, damp stone, and the faintest trace of sandalwood smoke her scent. The queen passed through here, recently, possibly often. Ahead, the walls open again, widening into a soft golden chamber, round, dim, and quiet, but humming with intent. It's smaller than most. No couches, just embroidered cushions scattered in concentric rings around a shallow platform. On it, a woman waits. Not just any woman. Venus. Or at least someone playing her. Or invoking her. But either way, the name passes your mind the moment you see her. She wears almost nothing. Her robe, if it can be called that, is translucent, wrapped loosely at her waist with gold chain. Her skin is painted in dusted rose and wine-red pigments contouring her curves in ways that suggest both divine geometry and deliberate invitation. Her feet are bare, her wrists ringed with bangles, and across her shoulders drapes a mantle of peacock feathers, long and soft and utterly unnecessary. That's the point. She is reclining, but not languidly. She's waiting. The air around her doesn't just shimmer, it listens. She sees you, and she smiles, not warmly, not seductively, strategically. There are a handful of others in the room already seated on the floor around her like a constellation of desire. A senator, a young girl in blue, the poet again, of course, a soldier with olive-toned skin and a scar beneath one eye. Each of them leans forward ever so slightly, knees bent, eyes bright. She lifts a hand only a few fingers and says, "Begin." You sit. The soldier speaks first. "I dreamed of a woman with hair full of smoke and a mouth like honey-rotted figs. She told me the Republic had already died, and she was burying it under her pillow." Chuckles scattered, soft. The girl in blue follows. "I saw Venus once. She didn't speak. She fed me a date and spat the pit at the moon." Laughter again. The game has begun. One mainstream historical fact: Romans revered Venus not just as a goddess of love, but as a manipulator of fates. Political seductions, public ceremonies, even battlefield blessings were attributed to her. She was divine diplomacy, wielded through beauty, but enforced through strategy. Some noble women fashioned themselves after her deliberately. This room is a recreation of that exact dynamic. The goddess speaks. Her voice is like pomegranate wine, smooth dark with a bite beneath the sweetness. "I will name no truth," she says, "but I will reward the lie that best believes itself." That's the game. Not honesty, but conviction. You finally unroll the scroll in your lap, carefully, slowly. It reads, "You are to speak the lie that would undo you if believed. And if believed, you must live it." No signature, no symbol, just that. You look up. She's watching you. No, they're all watching you. The room has stilled. It's your turn. You clear your throat. Then speak evenly. "I once received a letter declaring I'd been named heir to a senator's estate. He had no children, no wife, no reason. I burned it." Silence. Then the poet leans back, exhaling. Cruel. The soldier shakes his head. Cowardly. The girl in blue. "Why you simply say, because it wasn't true, and because it was." And the goddess smiles. She purrs. "Now we play properly." She rises, slowly, deliberately. She crosses the ring barefoot without a sound. Her gaze scans the guests like a queen selecting a favorite, or a spider examining which fly hums most sweetly. She stops in front of you, takes your face gently in one hand, and whispers, "Would you have burned the scroll I sent?" You say nothing. Because you don't know, and that she seems to appreciate most. Fringe fact time: there's evidence that during certain Roman rites, especially those mimicking the cults of Venus Verticordia, participants were encouraged to confess a false truth. One so deeply spoken, it risked becoming real. These weren't games. They were behavioral reprogramming designed to test the soul's ability to lie with conviction. Political actors trained this way. So did spies. So did survivors. She lets go of your face, steps back to the center, and announces he has spoken a ruin. No one claps, but a servant places a chain of tiny red beads around your wrist. Another mark, not of status, but of exposure. The chain clinks when you move. Soft, subtle, but unmistakable. Anyone who hears it knows what you've just done. One by one, the guests are dismissed. Not by command, by intuition. They rise, they bow, they leave. Even the poet, even the girl in blue. You remain, because she hasn't released you. The goddess sits, watches you, then finally asks, "Who do you think I was before this room?" You pause. Then answer, more dangerous. She exhales, laughs once, true, then leans forward. Tonight, she says, I perform divinity. But when I remove the feathers, when I wash the pigment off my legs, I remember who I am. And who's that, you ask? She holds your gaze. The one who decides who gets to perform tomorrow. A pause, then softer. There are no gods in Rome, only actors who survive the stage. She stands, walks past you, And as she reaches the curtain, she stops, touches your shoulder, and says, "Be careful. You're playing too well." Then she disappears. The chain on your wrist shifts. You're alone again, but not unseen. Never unseen. The red bead chain around your wrist clicks softly as you walk a rhythm you didn't ask for but now carry. It's light, but it drags in ways that aren't physical, like a whisper that repeats itself just behind your left ear. One that says you've been heard, you've been marked. The hallway you step into is quiet, not silent. Quiet in the way vaults are quiet. Controlled. Heavier than stone. You've re-entered the political vein of the villa. No laughter here, no liars or dancing satyrs. The air smells faintly of parchment beeswax and extinguished oil, a scholar's scent. 2 guards stand at the end of the corridor dressed not in military tunics, but plain brown robes. Their faces are unreadable, not slaves, not performers. These are the villa's watchers, men trusted to observe and forget unless asked to remember. They part as you approach. No words exchanged. Just a shared understanding that whatever happens next, no one else was present. The door they reveal isn't wide. It's tall, made of dark wood reinforced with iron etched with spirals that twist toward a single eye at the top center. The room of candles. It's smaller than the name suggests. Square, sparsely decorated. A table, a chair, and shelves, hundreds of candles in brass holders all lit. Each one burns with a steady, unwavering flame. No drafts here, no trickery. Only the slow and absolute consumption of wax. At the table sits an older man, robeless, hair silvered, his fingers stained with ink. A tablet rests before him blank, a stylus in one hand, a goblet in the other. He doesn't look up when you enter. You're not asked to sit, but a chair appears behind you regardless. You take it. Still, he says nothing. And then without looking, you've been watched. More than most, you glance at the candles. He finally meets your eyes. These flames are records, not of time, of attention. You follow his gaze. Each candle, you now realize, has a name scratched into its holder. Some in Latin, some in Greek, some in symbols. One of them glows slightly brighter than the others. Your name isn't etched in it. Not yet, but it's yours. You can feel it. He sets down the stylus. I am the record keeper of this house. I write what must never be archived, but also never be forgotten. You ask, why me? He smiles. That's what everyone asks. The ones who think they're important never enter this room. The ones who become important often forget it. Then he gestures toward the tablet. A single word now appears on it. Not in ink, just etched faintly from heat or pressure, mask. A callback to your token, to your first step inside this night. He says you've worn it well, but they're asking now what's underneath. You don't answer. He lifts the stylus again and etches another word beside it, chain. You glance down at your wrist. The red beads catch the light like blood, but in the reflection of the brass, they look almost gold. He nods slightly. Spoken lies carry more weight than confessed truths. You've spoken well. Mainstream historical note. Roman elites often assigned record keepers to private households, scribes tasked with maintaining unofficial histories. Not for the Senate, not for public record. These histories included guest behavior debts, owed secrets traded, and offers made. Many of these were oral histories. Others were burned at the end of each month. Only the useful ones survived. He speaks again. This room is not for the public story. It is for the operational one. You say nothing, but he's not waiting for permission. He continues. You struck no one yet, but your silence has unseated two. You blink, he clarifies. The poet will not return next moon. The merchant's seat has already been offered to someone else. And then the queen spoke of you. Pause. She said, the mask learns faster than it should. You exhale. It's not relief, it's confirmation. The man stands slowly but with no stiffness. He walks to one of the shelves, retrieves a single candle, unmarked. He holds it toward you. This is yours now. You can extinguish it when you choose. You take it. He sits again. And if I don't, he smiles. Then someone else will. You start to speak. He interrupts softly. You'll be summoned soon. Before that, a warning. He etches a third word on the tablet, perfume. Then he sets the stylus down. The scent she wears isn't hers. You frown, whose then he leans forward, candlelight sharpening the lines of his face into something ancient. It belonged to the last woman who held her seat. A beat, and she disappeared. Fringe detail. In Roman houses of influence, scent was a signature. Perfumes were custom blends, and some powerful women passed their recipes on as status markers. But among certain circles, wearing the scent of a predecessor wasn't homage, it was a challenge. A way of saying, I've replaced you, and I dare you to speak from the grave. The candle in your hand flickers once. You stand. He nods. You don't ask his name. You understand now he's not part of the performance. He's the editor. The door opens before you touch it. No guards now. Just a breeze of cooler air, and a hallway that smells faintly of pomegranate and burnt wax. The queen is near. You feel it in your chest. And when the next curtain lifts on its own, you see her. Not robed, not masked, just waiting. But not alone. A man stands beside her. Tall, pale, broad-shouldered, wearing the Thunderbolt medallion. Jupiter. The room is smaller than you expected for this confrontation, but there's enough space for one more strike. The curtain falls behind you like a judge's final word. No sound, no draft, just the decisive hush of sealed intent. The room ahead is shaped like a mirror of power, a long oval with no furnishings, no decorations, no distractions. The floor is black marble so polished that the flicker of the oil lamps along the walls turns every movement into a double. Your reflection moves beneath you like a shadow with ambitions. At one end stands the queen, at the other Jupiter, and you in between them. The moment you enter, they both turn, not abruptly, not ceremoniously, just enough to acknowledge your arrival, and then they look at each other again. You're not the center of this room, not yet, but you're the pivot. Jupiter steps forward first. His voice is smooth tonight, not thunderous like before. Almost courtly. I told them you wouldn't use the coin, he says, and yet you still carry it. You don't reply. He turns slightly, offering the queen a half smile. Perhaps he's waiting for the real gods to speak. The queen doesn't take the bait. She simply lifts her gaze, calm, unblinking, and says, "We already did." It lands like thunder. No raised voices, no clash. Just two competing gravities in a room too small to contain them. You take a step forward. The sound echoes longer than it should. "I was summoned," you say. Jupiter nods. "Indeed. And you arrived. That alone sets you apart." Then he lifts a hand and points to your wrist. The chain speaks. But does it speak for you? A clever opening move. He's challenging your loyalty. But the queen, she doesn't counter. Not with argument. She walks toward you. 3 steps. Slow. Each one deliberate. When she speaks, her words are for you alone. He is a storm in a borrowed sky. You are still choosing which weather to become. That pause again. That choice. But it isn't a real choice, is it? It's a performance. Another layer in a house that's all mask, all stage, all smoke. And still, every step you take next will be recorded in wax and memory. Not in ink, not in law, but in power. Jupiter turns and places something on the floor between you, a mirror. Small, handheld, its handle shaped like a serpent biting its tail. "Look," he says. "So you do. What you see is unclear. Not because the mirror's flawed, but because you've seen yourself too many ways tonight. The mask, the reflection in the mirror room, the silver mark, the red beads. Which version is this?" Jupiter kneels beside it, one knee on the marble, and says, "Speak your lie now. If you can still tell the difference. A reminder, the coin, your one strike, still unplayed, still burning in your tunic. You lift it. Let the weight settle between your fingers. They both watch. No motion, no pressure, only silence. Mainstream historical fact. Certain Roman cult initiations ended in what was called the decisio, a moment of symbolic choice made in front of two patrons or representatives of opposing forces. It was never recorded which choice was right, only that the choice itself altered the initiate's future. The act of choosing, not the direction, was what mattered. So you choose. You don't throw the coin. You place it on the floor, deliberately, between them. "I strike," neither you say. Let the coin choose its own lightning. Gasps no. Just silence, heavy and full. The queen steps forward, picks up the coin, and hands it to Jupiter. "You wear the thunder," she says, "but tonight you will answer to it." Then she turns to you. You are done with symbols. She reaches to your wrist, unclasping the red bead chain, drops it into a bowl of water near the wall where it sinks without a ripple. "You don't need to lie anymore," she says. A servant enters. He holds nothing. Just a small oil lamp. You are to follow. The queen does not bow, does not nod. She simply walks away. Jupiter watches her go, then looks at you, and for the first time tonight smiles genuinely. You've made things interesting. You follow the servant. This hallway is unlike the others. No scents, no silk, no sound. The flame in the lamp flickers calmly as you descend a short staircase carved into the rock itself. At the bottom is a small doorway, and behind it, a room not for pleasure, not for politics. A room made of memory. You step into it and freeze. It's simple: one table, two chairs, a wall covered in objects. Not paintings, not scrolls, not mosaics. Objects: a sandal, a broken goblet, a burned mask, a chain of red beads not yours, a mirror with a crack down the center. This is the archive, but not for what was written, for what was done. Fringe detail: elite Roman households sometimes kept secret shrines or memory chambers. Items from key nights were collected not as trophies, but as warnings. Symbols of the moment a mask slipped or struck. A woman sits at the table, not the queen, but you know her. She was the silent dancer, the one who marked you with silver. She nods and gestures for you to sit. When you do, she says, "You're past the story now. You're into the aftermath." You glance at the objects and realize every guest tonight, their story is already on this wall. You just hadn't made it to this room yet. She places a new item on the table, the Thunderbolt coin. You don't speak. She says you returned the lightning, but the storm may still come. The door closes behind you. There is no curtain this time, only consequence. You don't speak. The woman across from you, the one who danced, who painted your skin with silver, doesn't need you to. Her expression is quiet, neutral, composed. She doesn't smile, doesn't blink more than necessary. Her fingers rest gently on the edge of the coin she's just placed between you, the thunderbolt sigil still gleaming in the candlelight. You wonder briefly if she's the same person you met hours ago in that velvet-draped ritual chamber, or if that persona, like so many tonight, was shed like clothing behind the curtain. Here in this archive of actions, there are no roles, only records. She taps the coin once, a dull clink against the wood. "Do you know why you were brought here?" she asks, not unkindly. You hesitate. "Because I didn't use it." She nods, slowly. That's part of it. Then she leans forward just slightly, eyes catching the flicker of the small oil lamp between you. But also she adds, because you did. Your lips part. You stop, because of course it was a strike, wasn't it? You place the coin, publicly, between two competing icons of power. You chose not to choose which, in a house obsessed with manipulation, hierarchy, and performance, is the loudest action of all. The dancers, the poets, the gods, the queen, all played by the rules of appearance. But you played something else. You played the game around the game. And now you're in the room where that move is preserved. She turns her gaze toward the wall. You follow it. The artifacts aren't labeled, but you see patterns now. The red bead chains identical to yours. The cracked mirror unmistakably from the room of reflections. A tiny wolf pendant like the one embossed on your wax-sealed scroll. But one object stands out. A silver mask identical in shape to yours. But it's not polished. It's burned, the surface warped. One of the eye holes singed shut, and beneath it, resting on a folded cloth, a laurel crown, half melted. You ask what happened to him. She answers without hesitation. He chose Jupiter and tried to become him. You glance at the mask again. Did he strike? She tilts her head. Yes, and he struck hard, cleverly, boldly. Everyone applauded, a pause. But it was his second strike that undid him. A beat. There was no second coin. That sits with you for a long moment. Mainstream historical context. Within certain elite Roman social circles, especially during the reigns of emperors who trafficked in fear and theater like Domitian and Nero, public performance became both shield and noose. One wrong word, one extra gesture could be interpreted as treason. The phrase to overperform became synonymous with courting execution. You were expected to be clever, but never cleverer than your host. You ask, what happens now? She gently sets her hand on top of the coin and slides it back to her side. You leave the game. A silence both terrifying and oddly soothing. But I never finished, you say. Now she smiles. You did. You stand, slowly. She doesn't stop you. The artifacts on the wall don't shimmer, don't whisper, but they feel heavier as you pass. You now understand that every item here represents a moment of irreversible action. The exact breath when a guest became a threat, or a symbol, or an error. And somewhere likely out of sight, a scribe is already carving yours into wax, maybe even onto bronze, a curved bead, a thunderbolt coin, an unburned mask. That's your legacy here, for now. The door ahead opens, and with it comes a faint current of music. Not celebratory, not seductive, just soft and a little melancholic. Like the notes played when the curtain falls on a play that isn't quite a tragedy, but no longer a comedy either. The corridor you enter is familiar. You've been here, or somewhere like it. The scents are back, pomegranate, sandalwood, honeyed wine, and you can hear distant laughter. But you've passed beyond the edge of that energy now. You're not of the party anymore. You're something else, a presence, a memory, a ghost in the wings. You enter a smaller chamber, rounded, quiet. The lighting is low, the furniture minimal. There are 4 guests here, all dressed plainly, seated in a loose circle around a low fire. No masks, no tokens, only witnesses. One of them nods as you enter. "We heard what you didn't say," she murmurs. Another, "and how you said it." A third, older man, "That matters more than they remember tomorrow." You ask, "What is this room?" The fourth voice, younger male, "It's the chamber before you rejoin the world." The older man gestures to a robe draped over a marble bench. "Put it on." You don't leave wearing their colors. You remove your tunic, slide into the robe. It's soft, plain, almost coarse compared to everything else you've touched tonight. But it's yours. One fringe tradition, lesser-known elite Roman gatherings, often ended with a renunciation robe, a neutral garment given to departing guests who had crossed ritual thresholds, performed dangerous roles, or been bound by symbolic oaths. You left clothed, not in power, not in shame, but in anonymity. It allowed the night to remain unspoken. As you exit the chamber, you glimpse your reflection in a silver basin. The person looking back is not changed, but everyone else's memory of you will be. You are escorted through the service corridor. Not the grand exit, not the garden gate. You emerge from the villa's eastern side, where olive trees lean against the wall and a marble statue of Mercury watches the horizon like a sentry. No one speaks. The stars above are the same ones that watched you walk in, but now they shine on you differently. You've passed through the rooms, through the games, through the mirrors and masks, and you've left a story behind. Not a confession, not a legend, but a mark. One they will talk about softly, carefully in future nights. Some will say you were clever, others dangerous. Some might even say you were a god in disguise. They'll be wrong, but they'll say it anyway. The scent of warm earth clings to your robe as you move through the outer garden, the cool stones beneath your feet slick with early dew. A curved pathway winds past citrus trees and quiet fountains. No music here, no voices, just wind. And the rustle of a night so full of memory it can barely breathe. You are alone, but only visibly. Because as you pass beneath a fig tree, a voice calls out from the shadows. Someone's missing a sandal again. You turn, it's the poet. Still draped in his ridiculous gold-threaded tunic, though now it's damp from grass and sleep. He reclines on a marble bench, one leg bare, the other still strapped into a sandal that seems far too new for the kind of night he's had. He grins lazily. They always lose something, these nobles. Sandals, rings, names, virtue. You smile more out of reflex than anything else. "Weren't you banished?" you ask. He shrugs. "I always am, and I always return." You step toward him. The robe you wear rustles like a closing chapter. "What did you lose?" The poet looks at you carefully now, the grin fading just a touch. "Someone once whispered a line into my ear during a performance. It was so beautiful, so perfectly phrased, that I swore I'd remember it forever." A pause. "And now I can't recall a word of it." He stretches, sighs, and closes his eyes again. "That's what I lost. One fringe historical tidbit." At elite Roman banquets, it was common for certain performers, especially favored poets, to be both excluded and essential. Banished loudly, then invited back quietly. They were used like salt too much, and you ruined the meal. Too little, and everything tasted dull. As you turn to leave him, he calls out again. "You never struck, you know." You glance back. "I did. Just not where they expected." He nods, once eyes still closed. "Best kind." You continue through the trees. Another figure leans against a low wall, half shadowed by ivy. She wears a short robe and a crown of wilted grape leaves. Her fingers are stained with wine, and her eyes are clear, too clear. The girl in blue. She watches you approach, then plucks a petal from her sleeve and flicks it into a breeze. "I said you wouldn't survive the mirror," she says. You raise an eyebrow. "And yet here I am." She smiles, brief, tired. "Yes, but not as the same person." She holds up her hand, revealing a single bead red identical to those from the chain once around your wrist. "I kept one," she whispers, "to remember what I gave up." You ask, "What did you give up?" She looks away, a truth I'd learned to love. She tosses the bead into the pond behind her. It vanishes with the faintest ripple like a whisper pulled under silk. "The queen doesn't forget," she adds. "But she doesn't forgive either. Not really." You nod. You know. The girl vanishes into the trees. Quiet. Not in fear. Just done. You reach the courtyard now, the place where it all began. The mosaic floor still glistens under the moonlight, the same floral patterns beneath your sandals. Cupids chasing nymphs. The roses look darker now, like they've absorbed the night. A slave is kneeling there, scrubbing something from the tile with a worn cloth. His face is blank, efficient, familiar. You remember him. He was in the red room. He held the tray of ivory tokens. He glances up just once, then down again. You realize what he's scrubbing. A sandal, or rather the faint imprint of one. The print is dark, smudged, deep enough to have pressed pigment into the grout. He doesn't speak, doesn't need to. There are always things left behind, even footprints. You move toward the exit gate just beyond the garden wall. As you pass the last arch, you spot the queen's symbol carved into a beam above it, small, subtle, almost invisible. It wasn't there before. It's new. A small circle half-filled, a crescent, not whole. She marked this place, not as a throne, but as a boundary. And by crossing it, you are no longer under her gaze, which means you are no longer under her protection. You step through the gate. The villa disappears behind you with a finality that feels unnatural. You don't look back. Mainstream historian debate. Some argue that Roman elite villas were designed to confuse memory, to make recollection difficult. Rooms rearranged decor, rotated pathways reshaped by season. This wasn't just aesthetics, it was control. Guests were meant to feel unmoored, unable to orient themselves. A house of perpetual reinvention. And yet your mind remembers. You recall the sound of glass chimes in the mirror room, the weight of the silver mark on your collarbone, the taste of that one fig laced with something that slowed your blood. You remember the queen's hand on your shoulder, the god's coin in your palm, the moment you didn't strike, or did. Ahead lies the path that leads back to Rome, or wherever you wish to say you've been. No one will ask, not directly, but some will recognize the way you hold your breath in candlelight, or how you hesitate before answering a direct question. Some will notice the absence of your name on certain guest lists. Others will wonder why your presence commands more pause than it should. But no one, not a single soul, will know what you truly saw, what you truly chose, unless you invite them. And you won't. Not yet. Because some truths are like thunder, they make no sound until after the flash. And yours is still traveling. By the time your sandals hit dry gravel beyond the garden wall, the villa feels unreal, like a fever dream stitched together with scent and candlelight. You half expect to wake up under a blanket of goose feather and sweat, whispering lines from poetry. You never learned your skin still warm with someone else's perfume. But no, you're fully awake, and the night hasn't ended. Not exactly. The path you follow curves gently downhill toward the vicus, the workers' quarter, a place you'd never normally visit after a night like this. Yet your feet carry you there unbidden, or perhaps directed. The villa has a way of planting intentions inside people's steps, like seeds that bloom when the music stops. You hear voices before you reach the first stone wall, not revelry, not the low, dangerous murmur of power players circling each other. This is laughter, casual, guttural, real, and that's when you see them, the slaves, or rather the people who performed as slaves. The dancers, the servers, the whisperers in corridors. All gathered now in a square space behind a simple row of stables seated on crates and stones, sharing bowls of lentils and sipping diluted wine. They don't wear masks anymore. No oil, no paint, no chains, just faces. Tired, amused, absolutely alive. One man raises his cup when he sees you. "You're late," he calls. You blink. "I didn't know I was invited." A girl laughs softly from behind him. No one is, she says, but everyone arrives. They make room. A cushion appears. Bread is passed. No one bows. No one performs. And for the first time tonight, perhaps in the entire villa, you feel weightless. No eyes watching from behind silk. No power games tucked between toasts. No masks. Only people. The man beside you, young, broad-shouldered face, still smudged with rose pigment, pours you wine from a chipped jug. "You played well," he says. "Did I?" "You're still here," he shrugs. So yes, mainstream fact. While elite Roman feasts elevated a handful of performers to godlike roles for a single night, the people who ran the events, the servants, slaves, actors, decorators, often built long memories across dozens of such gatherings. They carried knowledge between households, between cities, sometimes even between generations. Many were enslaved. Some were free. All were witnesses. The girl across from you, wearing only a light tunic and a piece of faded ribbon in her hair, leans in. "You made the right choice with the coin," she says. "Was there a wrong one?" She smiles. "Always." Another laughs. "He should have thrown it at Jupiter's feet." "Nonsense," someone else says. "He'd have been thrown in the pool like the last one." You glance up. "Wait, what pool?" They grin. "Ah, that story's not for you. Not yet." They begin passing around a small clay board etched with marks, a slave's game. A cousin of dice, half strategy, half chance. You're dealt in without question. You play without learning the rules. You win twice. You lose 3 times. No one cares. It's not about the game. It's about the untangling. You ask one of them, a girl who balanced a dish on her head for hours, why they do it. "Serve," she asks. "No," you say. "Perform." She tilts her head. "We don't all get to live our truths in the open," she says. "But for one night we can perform everyone else's, and that's enough." A long pause. Then, and some of us do it to listen. She nudges the boy beside her. He keeps names, knows who lied. He nods proudly. You glance at him. "Did I?" He laughs. "Everyone does. But you lied without needing words." Fringe insight. There are theories rarely discussed in formal scholarship that slave networks in elite Roman houses often formed invisible councils. Systems of mutual memory, record-keeping, protection. Entire histories existed below the villa's floors. Not written in scrolls, but passed down in songs, gestures, jokes. You may have just stepped into one. The man who poured your wine stands, stretches. "You'll be expected again," he says. You raise an eyebrow. At the villa, he grins. Not necessarily, but somewhere. Another girl picking fig seeds from her teeth adds, "You're one of them now. They won't admit it, but they'll feel it. And if I don't go back?" You ask. They all exchange glances, then shrug. You will. The conversation drifts. People pair off. Someone sings softly a tune with no words. You sit in stillness, letting the air cool your neck, the wine dull the edges of thought. And then, in the distance, bells, small, subtle, from the villa's roofline. Midnight, the final hour of the party. You stand. They don't stop you. Someone tosses you a fig. For the walk, he says. You bite into it. Sweet. Ripe. No poison tonight. The path back isn't straight. It doesn't lead toward the villa or Rome or anywhere obvious. But it leads. And that's enough. When you reach the edge of the road, you find something unexpected. Your original sandals, placed neatly, cleaned, restored. Beside them a single red bead and a folded scrap of parchment unsigned marked only with a crescent. It reads, "You left your name inside. It's safer that way." No signature, no invitation, no threat, just a fact. You slide the sandals on. They fit better now. Or maybe you fit better now. The sky is lighter than it was, just barely. A deep purple haze at the edge of the world. The kind of color that only appears when something is ending, or about to begin. You walk, not away, not toward, just forward. And behind you, the villa sighs into sleep. But the stories inside it, those never sleep. They wait. The road curves through olive groves and low stone fences, the trees whispering above you as if they know what you did or didn't do. The stars are beginning to fade, and with them so is the weight of the villa's perfume-soaked spell. But not entirely. Not yet. It's still in your lungs, in your bones, in the rhythm of your feet. Each step feels deliberate. Even though there's no one watching anymore, you find yourself walking as if observed, shoulders balanced, spine straight, head high. That's the thing no one tells you about nights like that. They change the way you move in the world. You crest a hill, and in the distance beyond the cypress grove, the outermost walls of Rome come into view, faint like a memory rising through fog. And beside the path, a low stone altar, unassuming, ancient, dedicated to Mercury, judging by the wings etched into the corners. It's one of many littering the countryside, usually ignored, unless you're a traveler or someone with something to offer. Tonight you are both. You pause, then reach into the folds of your robe and retrieve the fig's pit, the one you bit into back at the slave's fire. You place it on the altar without ceremony, an offering, not for favor, for closure. Then you notice something carved into the underside of the altar's edge. Faint, almost invisible. You kneel to see it more clearly. It's a list of names. Some you recognize, some you almost recognize. And some are marked not with letters, but with symbols, masks, thunderbolts, crescents, coins. There's space for one more. You don't carve it, but you know it's there, waiting. Historical detail. Travelers in ancient Rome often left small items, fig pits, coins, flower petals at roadside shrines, to Mercury, god of journeys, deception, and transitions. Many used them to close one identity before stepping into another. It was a way of severing the self or thanking the god for a secret well kept. As you walk again, you feel something lighten inside your chest. Not relief, just permission to go on. Ahead, the road splits. One path to the main city gate, wide, cobbled, soon to be flooded with carts, guards, and early risers. The other smaller, cutting through a grove hidden by flowering hedges and overgrown vines. You choose the second, not to hide, but to avoid being recognized. Because now you carry a scent of something indelible. Not perfume, not oil, reputation. And in this world, that's harder to wash off than blood. You reach a fountain abandoned dry, Once ornate, now cracked. On its basin, a discarded piece of jewelry. A bangle, gold, bent. You don't touch it. It's an echo of someone else's story. Yours is already heavy enough. At the end of the grove, a man waits. Middle-aged, clean robe, neutral expression, holding a wax tablet. No insignia, no questions. He looks at you once, then turns and begins to walk. You follow. He doesn't speak until the city walls rise before you. Then, without stopping, your name's been adjusted on 3 lists. You say nothing. He continues. 2 people have requested you at future gatherings. One under the Queen's seal, one under no seal at all. Pause. The sealless one is more dangerous. You ask, what happens if I say no? He shrugs. You won't. He hands you the wax tablet. Unmarked. No name. Only a drawing, a half moon with a diagonal line through it. A slashed crescent. It's not the Queen, but it's someone who knows her, and maybe opposes her, or mirrors her. You slip the tablet into your robe. You don't ask the man who he serves. He doesn't offer it. Fringe history. There were networks within networks in Rome's upper society, hostesses and power brokers, who didn't always bear titles but operated as mirrors of official power. Women who ran salons, controlled information, built alliances, and destroyed rivals, all without stepping into the Senate. They used symbols, invitation tablets, whispered codexes, entire societies built behind a veil. The gate ahead opens. Sunlight hits your face. Not warm, not harsh, just present. The man disappears down another street, and just like that, you're back. In Rome, where no one knows where you've been, and everyone will try to guess. You pass a baker pulling bread from a hot oven, a boy sweeping a tavern step, a woman scolding a sleepy dog. The city doesn't care what happened behind the villa's walls, but its people. Oh, they will. They'll smell it on you, hear it in the pause between your sentences, see it in how you blink before answering a direct question. You're now part of the invisible registry, not written in ink, written in memory, and rumor, and fear. Someone calls your name, not your real name, your public name. You turn, smile, speak, and walk forward. But inside you, that coin still turns. That chain still rattles. That mirror still reflects. And somewhere behind those distant walls of ivy and silk, the Queen is watching, or waiting, or forgetting, but not forgiving. You make it 7 steps down the street before you realize you're not walking the same way anymore. There's no change in your stride, no limp, no exaggerated grace. But something in your posture has shifted an angle, a weight, the kind of thing that people don't see so much as feel. You move like someone who's been inside the villa. And Rome, sharp-eyed, rumor-fed Rome notices. The first sign is the shopkeeper's glance. Brief, curious, a flicker of recognition, though she doesn't know your name. Just the aura, the scentless residue of a night beyond her tax bracket. One that glows behind your eyes like candlelight beneath a veil. Next, a pair of magistrates' aides whisper as you pass. They don't smile, they don't nod, but they mark you. And then a boy on the corner, barefoot, fig-stained lips, points and says, "That one was at the Mask House." His mother hushes him. Too late. Mainstream historical note word moved fast in Rome, not because of messengers, but because of mouths. Elite houses depended on servants, scribes, florists, even tailors. Each one carried bits of gossip like bees between flowers. Silent guests were discussed before they even left the party. Some earned invitations from a single nod. Others earned exile from a single sentence. You slip into a shaded arcade just to breathe. That's when she appears. The silent dancer. Again. No silver, no mask, just a deep blue cloak over a working tunic and her hair bound in a tight coil. She doesn't speak, doesn't need to. She nods for you to follow. You don't ask where. You do. She leads you through back alleys and hidden courtyards until you're standing before a public bathhouse. Not the elegant frigidarium of noble villas, this is common, cracked, half-covered in graffiti. But she walks inside like it's a palace. So you do too. The interior is humid, smells of oils and wood smoke. A boy ladles warm water into a basin. Another stirs herbs into a steam pipe. She gestures to a stone bench. You sit, and she hands you a mirror. Small, metal, dull from age. This one doesn't flatter. What do you see? She asks softly. You study it. Lines you don't remember. Shadows that weren't there before. A calm you didn't earn. And you answer honestly, I see someone who watched others lie and learned how. She smiles. Just once. Then produces something from her sleeve. A token, not a coin. A key. Small. Bronze. Worn smooth by time. She presses it into your palm. It's not for a door, she whispers. It's for a story. You frown. She continues. The villa is not the only house with mirrors. The queen is not the only woman who commands rooms by watching them burn. You glance at the key. No markings. But it feels heavy with implication. There's another gathering, she says. Soon. Not at the villa. Who's hosting? She gives you a name you weren't meant to hear yet. It lands like a blade wrapped in velvet. A rival, a reflection. Someone who's watched the queen for too long and has now decided to answer her with a performance of her own. Fringe insight, Rome's elite rivalries didn't always play out in courts or blood. Sometimes they unfolded across months of dinners, symbols, and gatherings. A single mask changed color. A seating chart shifted. A servant replaced. Every detail a move, a message, and a weapon. You pocket the key. The dancer stands. You'll go, she says. It's not a question. You nod. Will I survive it? She tilts her head. You survived the mirror. The rest is muscle memory. Then she walks into the steam and disappears. You sit. The bathhouse quiet. The key warm in your hand. You realize what she's just done. She gave you your next part in the play, but not the script. You'll have to write that one yourself. You stand. The robe you wear is still plain, still nondescript. But now you notice how it shapes you like armor made of modesty. You don't belong to the villa anymore. You belong to Rome, to the in-between. The liminal space where memory becomes myth and myth becomes invitation. When you leave the bathhouse, the light has changed. Softer. Gold. The kind of light that flatters but doesn't forgive. You pull the robe tighter, because you are now known, but not yet understood. And that's your power. For now. Rome by daylight is a different animal. The masks are subtler, the lies more dignified, and the hunger, well, it wears togas and signs senatorial decrees, but it's still hunger all the same. You thread your way through the forum, past marble statues and men shouting about grain prices and naval budgets. Senators bicker, plebs linger. The entire city feels like it's performing stability even as its foundation creaks beneath centuries of theater. And yet none of this touches you. Not anymore. Because you carry something heavier than a name or a title. You carry a story no one else can tell. A merchant passes you. You know him. Or at least you know the robe he wore when he whispered secrets to the queen in the candlelight. Now he's arguing about taxes with another man, pretending he's never smelled sandalwood oil or tasted grape wine laced with opium and secrets. You keep walking. You pass a scribe, a real one, ink-stained fingers, eyes squinting at a wax tablet standing just outside a shaded colonnade. He's copying a list. You glance at it as you pass. Guest names from that night. You slow down. His hand trembles, not because he sees you, but because he knows someone will ask about that list. Someone always does. Mainstream historical fact. Many Roman households kept two sets of records, one official, one whispered. Guest lists were adjusted post factum. Names erased, edited, or added depending on political winds. A man could rise from obscurity because his name appeared on the right list, or vanish because someone forgot to write it at all. You turn down an alley of shadow and soft footsteps and find your way into a courtyard cafe, quiet, forgettable, perfect. You sit. The waiter brings watered wine without asking. No words exchanged. He knows, or he thinks he knows. From your satchel, you retrieve the wax tablet the silent dancer gave you, the one with the slashed crescent. You press your thumb into it. It warms, softens, and then cracks, not loudly, just enough to break a seal. Inside, embedded between layers of wax, is a slip of papyrus thin as skin. On it, a name you've never spoken aloud. A woman, not the queen, but not far from her. A rival, a friend turned shadow, a former hostess. The name coils in your mind like a riddle spoken backward. Below it, a location, a time. Not tonight, tomorrow. She moves faster than the queen. She's challenging the throne immediately, and she wants you there. Not as a guest, as a variable. Fringe rumor occasionally elite Roman figures would counter an enemy's power by launching a mirroring event, a gathering, a feast, or even a scandal that mimicked the opponent's format but twisted the theme. It wasn't parody, it was ritual opposition. The message, anything you can do, I can weaponize. You sip your wine. It tastes faintly of rosemary and charcoal. You wonder how long they've been watching you, how many masks you've collected, how many rooms you've entered not by invitation, but by trajectory. You're not being included anymore. You're being deployed. A figure slides into the seat across from you, not disguised, not in costume, but familiar. The man who wore Jupiter's thunderbolt now sits in a plain tunic, hands folded neatly, eyes sharp. You walk differently, he says. You say, so do you. He chuckles. I don't have to perform anymore. You lean forward. Did you ever? He doesn't answer. Instead, he produces something from his robe. Your coin. The original strike token, unused, unspent. You blink. I gave that up. He nods. You did. Then pushes it toward you. You get one more. You hesitate. Why? He shrugs. Because she's playing too loud. And the queen prefers her music. Softer. You slide the coin back toward him. Give it to someone else. He smirks. You misunderstand. You don't get to keep it this time. You have to use it. A beat. You ask, what if I strike her? He leans back. Then I'll know you finally learned how the game is really played. He stands, leaves. No bow, no flourish, just absence. You sit with the coin. It's heavier now. Maybe because it's not yours. Maybe because this time it comes with expectation. You realize something. The first strike was about freedom. This one is about alignment. You're being drafted, not asked, not lured, but folded into the next equation. As you leave the cafe, a breeze kicks up through the narrow street. Dry leaves swirl. A cart rattles in the distance. You know the villa is still standing, still whispering. But this new house, the one behind the slashed crescent, it's coming. And it's not interested in ritual or memory. It's interested in undoing. And you're walking straight toward it. The slashed crescent burns in your mind like a brand still fresh. You don't know what house it belongs to. Not officially, not yet. But it's already working its way through the back corridors of your instincts. This is not a party. This is a challenge. and you've been placed right in the middle. Not as a guest, as a variable. And every variable can become a threat, a tool, or a mistake. You walk, not toward the address, not yet, but to the only place in the city where guesses become history. The Library of Polius. It isn't on the Forum. It's tucked behind a bakery and 2 shrines in the Subura district, where the respectable don't linger long. It doesn't look like a place where scholars work. It looks like a granary that forgot how to rot. But inside, scrolls so old they crumble at breath. Names scratched into wood. Maps of villas long since burned. And a man named Dacianus. He's bald, always chewing cloves. Usually smells like boiled wool and disapproval. "Ah," he says when he sees you, the mask walker. You sit without invitation. He pushes a goblet of watered vinegar toward you. "Tell me what you need, and then tell me what you don't want me to say out loud." You draw the slashed crescent in a circle of spilled flour on the table. He whistles low. "Bold," he mutters. "She's moving fast." She Dacianus smirks. They call her Domina Umbrarum in some circles, Lady of Shadows, but her real name's older than that. You ask for it. He doesn't give it. Not immediately. Instead, he rolls his shoulders, leans back, and says, "She was once part of the Queen's house. Not as a rival, not even as a peer, but as a mirror, a performer designed to mimic, to absorb, to learn." You ask a double, not quite. More like a blueprint, a prototype. But she broke containment. You say nothing, but your fingers drum softly against the table. She knows every room. Dacianus continues, every ritual, every rehearsed mistake the Queen ever choreographed. She doesn't want to burn the system. Pause. She wants to replace it. Mainstream historical debate scholars still argue whether certain figures in Roman social circles, especially courtesans, high-ranking slaves, or foreign wives, intentionally crafted countercourts. These weren't political revolutions. They were narrative rebellions. They changed who told the stories and who was allowed to star in them. You ask Dacianus what this rival wants with you. He chuckles. "The same thing the Queen wanted. To use me, no. To see if you'll use yourself." He stands, walks to the back, comes back with a single scroll sealed with black wax and an embedded sliver of obsidian. He sets it down. "You'll want to read this somewhere no one's watching." You pocket it, then ask which one is worse. The Queen or her mirror? Dacianus doesn't blink. The one you don't recognize until she's already told your story. You leave and feel eyes on you the moment you step outside. Not hostile, not yet, but curious, expectant. Rome's breathing with anticipation now. It knows a new house is rising, and you're carrying the invitation. You find a place, an abandoned bathhouse near the Aventine, the kind that's half fallen into ruin with vines through its columns, and a roof open to sky. You break the seal on the scroll. Inside, no narrative, just ritual instructions. It's an invitation, yes, but also a script, a rival version of the Queen's Night. You recognize the bones, the couches, the tokens, the lie that ruins the mirror ritual. But it's twisted. In this version, guests choose their own masks. There is no throne, no central figure, no designated gods. There is only a circle. Everyone is equal, which means no one is safe. And the final line. The last to speak becomes the first to be seen. That's not theater. That's bait. You seal the scroll again, because this house is not trying to manipulate power. It's trying to expose it, and you've already been seen. Fringe detail toward the empire's decline. Certain aristocratic cults experimented with inversion rites, rituals where the roles of master and servant, ruler and subject, host and guest were deliberately reversed. Some were games, some were punishments, some were warnings. All were dangerous. You step back into the street and immediately sense the shift. The Queen's Watchers are gone, replaced. New eyes, new whispers. Someone's already rewritten your placement in the script. You're not neutral anymore. You're contested property. As you move through the city, signs of tension flicker at the edges. A merchant's stall closed early despite full inventory. A bathhouse hosting an unusual number of nobles. A theater troupe suddenly canceled a performance with no reason. Each a signal. Each a rearrangement of the stage. And somewhere in a shadowed chamber, the Queen already knows. She's already adjusting. You wonder which version of your name she'll remove first. You stop in a shaded square and realize you're not being invited anymore. You're being positioned. The new house has opened its doors, and you're the first one through. The night before the gathering arrives like a held breath, the kind that rattles the chest before it calms. Rome doesn't sleep, everyone knows that. But tonight, its stillness feels curated, as though some unseen stagehand has dimmed the lamps. A fraction too low dampened the usual tavern shouting and pressed a warning into the air like wax onto parchment. Because everyone who matters knows what's about to happen. They might not say her name, Domina Umbrarum, but they feel the gravitational shift she causes. She's not a goddess. She's not the queen, but she's real enough now that the city is holding its metaphorical breath for her next move. And you're the first guest. The unaligned variable. The test. You arrive at the location just before midnight, a domus buried deep in the Esquiline surrounded by old ivy-covered walls and guarded by silence. There's no music, no scent of figs or wine, no torchlight. Only a single lamp hanging from a stone arch, swaying in the warm night wind like a pendulum waiting to swing. The gate opens for you, not by hand, just opens. And on the other side is no one. No servants, no greeters, no dancers offering masks. Just a long corridor lit by oil lamps, low flickering cold. You walk. Your sandals click against rough marble. This villa is not silk and rosewood. It's carved from stone and shadows. Less performance, more echo chamber. It doesn't seduce, it listens. At the end of the corridor, a courtyard, circular, surrounded by 10 stone seats arranged like teeth in an open mouth. In the center, a table unadorned, and upon it, nothing. A woman stands just beyond the circle, plain robe, no crown, no veil. But you know, she doesn't speak, doesn't smile. She just watches, the domina. She gestures for you to take one of the seats. You do. Stone, cold, carved with faint sigils you don't recognize. Across from you, another figure enters. Then another. Then another. All quiet. All without fanfare. Each one chooses a seat. No seating order, no hierarchy. A senator, a courtesan. A young man with ink on his fingers and fear in his eyes. A veiled woman who smells of myrrh and wet stone. No one speaks. No one dares. Because something about this circle demands restraint. And then she does speak. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just tonight, there is no queen. A pause. No host. Another pause. No audience. You glance at the others. Some nod. One stares at the table. The domina walks to the center and places a single object down. A mirror. Not polished, not silver, just glass. Cracked in one corner. Set in black wood. She places it facing upward, and then steps back. No one leaves this house tonight unchanged, she says, and no one will remember what name they came in with. She gestures to the mirror. One by one we will speak, truth or lie, your choice. But know this, the mirror will remember. No one volunteers. Until you do. You don't plan to, but your body stands anyway. The coin in your pocket feels like fire now. The one Jupiter returned. The one you were told to use. You step into the center. Look down and see not your face, but all the faces you wore at the Queen's villa. The mask, the coin, the red beads, the hesitation, the choice, all layered in reflection, overlapping like oil on water. You speak, I was given a strike. Twice. I used it neither time. That is the truth. The mirror flickers, then stills. The domina nods. You carry balance, she says. That makes you dangerous. You return to your seat. The others speak. One admits to poisoning a senator's brother. Another confesses to never speaking at the Queen's gatherings, though always present. The Inkwell boy sobs as he reveals a secret he wrote down, but never delivered one that could bring down an entire genes. Each story settles like ash over the courtyard, and the mirror, it never cracks. It never judges, but it remembers. Mainstream historian debate. Some scholars argue that private elite cults in Rome occasionally employed testimonial rituals involving mirrors not as spiritual tools, but as psychological ones. Guests would confess or lie in front of a reflective object, believing that the mirror would hold the weight of their words. Whether this was symbolic or believed to have power remains a point of scholarly tension. When the final guest speaks, the domina steps forward. She turns the mirror over. The back is carved with a labyrinth, not intricate, simple, direct. At the center, a crescent, unslashed, whole. She says the Queen names herself in pieces. I do not. A message, not just for you, for her. Then she gestures. Two servants enter. Plain. They carry bowls of water. Each guest is to dip their hands. No oils, no perfumes, just cold water. To erase, to begin. You comply. The water stings, not from temperature but memory. It carries away everything that no longer protects you, and then you're handed a new robe. Gray, heavy, woven with thread that seems to catch no light. You put it on, and for the first time since the villa you feel dressed. The domina speaks again. Tonight ends with no tokens, no names, only echoes. She bows and leaves. No curtain, no fanfare. The others follow, one by one. You rise. Your pocket is empty, the coin gone. The mirror still there, still watching. As you walk out into the city, the sun hasn't risen. But something else has. A second story. One not ruled by gods or queens. One where masks aren't chosen for you, but by you. And now Rome knows there's a new house in the game. And you were its first guest. The robe you wear now doesn't shimmer. It doesn't seduce. It doesn't whisper privilege or radiate scent. It hangs on you like a cloud of ash, a garment made for fading into doorways, into shadows, into the space between other people's glances. And that's exactly what you need. Because you aren't a guest anymore. You're a vessel. You walk the streets of Rome in silence. No fanfare, no crowd, but everyone feels you passing. The baker pauses as he slices bread. The beggar's song dies in his throat. Even a street cat stares longer than it should. Not because they know who you are, but because they can sense the absence of who you were. You've been rewritten. And in this city of memory and myth, rewriting is rarer than resurrection. You turn a corner and find a familiar figure waiting near a crumbling statue of Janus, the god of thresholds. It's the scribe, the one who was editing the guest list. He doesn't bow, doesn't smile, just offers you a sealed scroll. No wax this time. Just a twist of cloth dyed in two tones, violet and gray. The Queen's color and the domina's together. You don't open it. Not yet. You say, which one sent this? He answers, neither. You raise an eyebrow. He says both. Then he leaves. Mainstream historical fact. During the late Empire, symbolic communications often replaced direct letters, especially between rivals who couldn't risk being seen aligning or accusing or warning. Mixed die was a common signal, a message that held two truths at once and denied both if questioned. You open the scroll when you're alone. Inside, 3 words handwritten in a sharp, unreadable script. Choose your audience. Nothing else. No invitation, no instruction, just a reminder of where the power now lies. You, the one who didn't strike, the one who walked through mirrors and masks and still walks forward. You are no longer just being used. You are being watched by both houses. Because what you do next will write the next ritual, and maybe the next city. You arrive at your domus just before the sun crests the horizon. You undress, carefully, deliberately, and you do not burn the robe. You fold it, because you'll need it again. And the coin. It's under your pillow when you lie down. Returned without warning, because no one ever really takes it from you. They just wait until you believe you're done using it. Then when your hand is steady, when your heart is uncertain, it appears again. A weight, a question, a strike yet to be delivered. And as you close your eyes, the city exhales. Somewhere the queen is bathing her wrists in oil and memory plotting her next scene. Elsewhere, the domina is redrawing the mirror's circle wider this time. And in the space between them, you, not a guest, not a servant, not even a threat, just a story, still unfolding, still dangerous, still alive. You don't dream, not really, but as your breathing slows and your limbs sink deeper into the stillness of your bed, fragments begin to stir, images, half-remembered voices, stripped of faces, rooms that no longer exist, but somehow still echo behind your eyes. There's the garden with the red beads tangled in the grass, the throne that wasn't truly a throne, the girl in blue who said you wouldn't survive the mirror. And you didn't. Not exactly. You hear footsteps again, not real ones, but the kind that live in memory, walking across the polished stone of your mind, pausing just behind you. You don't turn. You don't need to. Because now everything that happened, every lie, every gesture, every game, they all exist inside you. Not like a burden, but like a second heartbeat. Slower, deeper, more ancient. Outside, the city moves. The olive trees whisper. Rome forgets and remembers in equal measure. But here in this moment, you are safe. Your breath steadies. Your limbs grow heavier. Your thoughts blur at the edges. And as sleep finally takes you, not like a thief, but like a hand cupping a flame, you feel the faintest smile touch your lips. Not because you won, not because you lost, but because you lasted. And in the end, that's what stories remember most. End of script. Sweet dreams.